Feel like Stuart.
Right. He told me that's long.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Okay.
children.
Oh, yeah.
All right, if y'all are ready, we'll get started, since I've been told that everything you're saying at this point is being recorded. Now, you know, it just wouldn't be right if I didn't have some changes to propose for the agenda. So I'm going to propose these changes, and I'm going to make this in the form of a motion. We have Andrew Tritt here today to speak with us, and Andrew's on a real tight schedule. So he is currently, let's see, I think 23rd on here. No.
Yeah.
23rd? Yeah, okay. I'm going to propose that we move Andrew up directly after agenda approval so that he can discuss with us what he needs, and then be able to get to his next appointment. So 23 we move to very first thing. And I'm going to propose that we move items 10 and 11 to the first two items under action items and B.
You want to include 12 along with that or not?
Let me see. Yes, let's include 12 with that as well. Those are all just kind of related. Actually, my next thing is to move on to 12.
Okay.
That's the only changes. I'm going to get to them. In fact, since I made the motion, I'm going to go ahead and ask about that. We've got a late application for the river license for Cartacay for Woody. It's not on the agenda, but we do have one river license on there, and I'm wondering if that is insignificant enough that we can add it to the agenda, or if we need to do it in February.
I think it'd be better if it's February, recognizing that it was a late application. We suggest that the applicants can then make a late application to a late addition to the agenda. But in fact, with the necessity of it being published.
Okay, then make that for the February agenda. It kind of is what it is.
It won't affect it. I'll look at this law and it should not affect it because it has been filed in the calendar year for 2019.
All right, so with those changes, then I would propose that first of all, we all have the changes. And I propose that the agenda be approved with the changes that I specified.
I'll second, Charlie.
All in favor? Aye.
First vote.
Andrew, if you would explain all this to us, please, so that even myself could understand.
Well, I appreciate you guys accommodating okay, here, I'll give you a new card.
Thank you.
So, what we're here to talk about is a Series 2014 bond that we did in 2014. And that was the first refinancing that we in the county undertook in what has been the course of a lot of refinancings over time. These bonds are being paid with sales tax money, which is one of the reasons why we've included in this book not only your outstanding debt, but SPLOS and cash flow and that sort of thing. And so maybe what I'll do is just walk you through page by page, and then we'll get to the crux of what we're here to talk about today. This first page is a summary of your outstanding debt. And just to recap, what we're here to talk about today has a rate of a 309. Your other bond issuances now have a rate of a 237, a 185, a 185, and then finally a 4% coupon, but the yield was much lower, but it's reported as 4%. The next page that you have in front of me is an interest rate graph. And that's important because, you know, you see over time, interest rates have slowly crept up, particularly with the new tax code change. Tax exempt bonds sort of left, you know, the air went out of the balloon and they became a little bit less valuable, which meant the rate. Over the last, I'd call it 60 days, we've had a big change in rates. It's gone down about 0.5%. You know, you could attribute a lot of things to that. The economy, the fear of, you know, recession, China trade talks, etc. We're in a volatile market. You know, you can look at the stock market. You've got 800 point swings each day. So everything that we're talking about today, the caveat, it's falling. Okay. Part of the volatility has been an increase in short-term rates as well, and I've included what is, you know, locally can be used as reinvestment rates, short-term rates. And what we're talking about is long-term, but just to sort of put this in perspective, I've included the Georgia Fund 1, which the State Treasurer's Office puts out, and that's, you know, how you can invest your money as a state entity or a governmental entity. That remarketed in December at a rate of a 235, which just came out yesterday, which basically short-term rates have gone up 4% over the course of the calendar year of 2018. SPLOST collections is on the following page, and again, the reason why this is important is SPLOST helps repay this particular obligation. So the less debt service you have, the more SPLOST money you have to spend. We've shown the history here of SPLOST annually. 2013, you collected $3.5 million a year. We're now collecting $4.3 million a year. That's a 7.5% increase from last year. We're moving in the right direction. Based on last year's collections, if we projected a 6-year tax, which clearly got renewed in November, without sort of doing any other competitive growth, you're going to collect $26 million for a 6-year tax if it started today. Now, clearly, that we've got another 2 years for the existing tax, so that growth in between that time and during that tax will change that. So we built all the way up to the debt that we have, the SPLOST that comes in, property tax that comes in, and this page that's got 10 columns as a graph. And I apologize that these page numbers are numbered. It would be a little bit easier that way. But basically, net, you've got about $2 million of free cash flow to fund the projects outside of that your referendum has passed. That said, and that's $2 million a year. You've got 2 years left on this SPLOST, and, you know, voted 6 years after that. So for the next 8 years, you know what the plan is. Now, what I'd call option A, the current opportunity. And this is, as of January 3rd, rates went down a little bit. We're back kind of where we were, generally speaking, January 3rd. So I think that these are pretty good numbers at a snapshot now. And what this is an opportunity to refinance that 2014 obligation from a yield of a 309 to something a little over 2.5%. With the big caveat that maybe that becomes higher, maybe it becomes lower. The net effect after cost is a savings of $168,000. That's 1% of the debt that we've refinanced. And that 1%, typically, we look at 3% or higher. It's just to say how much savings is meaningful to move forward with this. We say that in an ordinary market. It's really a function of what is your perception. It's one of those things, the saying, I don't know, break your nose to spite your face. It's something like that. There's a certain point where it becomes an aggregate dollar. How meaningful is $100,000 or $200,000 to Gilmer County versus just saying, well, it's not enough, and we're just going to wait for something that potentially will never come, right? So the option A here is just a straightforward refinancing. You save $168,000 over the course of time. That's about $15,000 a year. You also have the option of accelerating that, and due to present value calculations, you'd get about $136,000 immediately in savings if you chose to recognize it there. And again, the reason why you might recognize it all as a lump sum, and that's how we've set this up in the past, is to help fund certain, let's reap the benefit of this SPLOST cash flow now, where we can get more done in an economic way. What I consider, and so I've got the cash flow of those savings on the following page. You're still, you're basically what you had plus $15,000 a year. And these are reported, one's reported on an April 1st basis, one's reported on October 1st, so the numbers might look a little funny when you flip back and forth, but they're right. Then option B is a scenario where we do the same thing, but the way that we structure the refinancing is that we defer a principal that would have been paid on April 1st, 2019 to April 1st, 2020. And in the course of doing that, we effectively advance $1 million of SPLOST into the next 12 months. And we have $1 million less of SPLOST in the months 2012 to 24. So basically, you get $3 million over the next 12 months or so, and then $1 million the following year, while still saving, at effectively a similar refunding rate. Those savings go down to $128,000. There's still positive savings, but if there's any one particular project that's important to get started, then you've effectively done a little two-step here to get you more money in the same, where we're not bleeding over between the current SPLOST and the recently voted SPLOST. These are current SPLOST projects now that were, voted I think in 2013. But that's what becomes available to you. Since these are revenue bonds issued with an intergovernmental agreement, we've got the flexibility. So those are sort of, what I consider option A and option B, the savings related to it, the cash flow resulting from it, which aligns with SPLOST, and this would take 30 to 40 days. So, just because we're at a certain level now, we're going to have to come back to you with final approval. Here's the numbers. Are we good with them, or do we need to wait? The reason why we would wait is if interest rates went up and those savings got diminished, where we just said, well, we need to keep our powder dry. But those are the opportunities at hand. The reason why this is coming up now is that these bonds are now callable. When we refinanced these in 2014, we took a significant amount of savings, over $1 million at the time. But there was a blockout period of approximately 5 years. So here we are, fast forward 5 years later. We never really thought there would be much of an opportunity to save any money. So I'm looking at it from a dollar perspective and not a percentage perspective. But that's the opportunity, to kind of stop and see what the conversation is.
So the decision that we need to make for tonight then is, and recognizing that this is all volatile, if we want to proceed with this at all first. If so, do we want to go with Plan A, which is the straight savings, or Plan B, which moves $1 million forward again?
Yeah, and I would say that option B, we've got time on option A, just that things in the market kind of changes on us. The reason why option B works is because we're so close to that April 1st payment date that, you know, once we get beyond that April 1st payment date, then option B really isn't an option anymore. So, you know, the conversation.
Now, if we go with option B, the $1 million that gets moved ahead, would that be on this April's payment date or following April?
It would free up this April 1st, 2019.
So essentially we get an extra $1 million in 19, but we get $1 million less.
There's no new
Essentially pay it back.
Right. We're just accelerating the timing is, we're bringing up the commitment now. To be due later.
We're taking it early, almost like a loan, except that there's no interest cost associated with it.
That's right. Yeah, well, I mean, the interest cost, I mean, you still save money in the process, right? So
Well, I
we
mean, it's
wouldn't be
still a
doing
positive
this.
savings, actually.
Yeah, we wouldn't be even talking about this if it was costing money.
Correct.
So in the course of, I would look at it as, in the course of refinancing, can I have my cake and eat it too?
Right. So do y'all have any questions on what we need to determine tomorrow night?
There's nothing left or expected for the rest of the indebt out through 2032, is it?
I mean,
We've matched.
Yes, we're gonna do it for us.
I mean, it's, we're never gonna touch 1.85% or 2.37%. I mean, it's just, unless we get some sort of defeasance, but we're not issuing refinancing debt.
Any other questions for Andrew? Oh, okay, Brian?
In calculating your SPOS, what's coming in, is there anything calculated for internet sales tax this year in that over and above, or are you just using the model of last year?
Well,
Because this year, there's gonna be a difference with internet sales tax, correct? Would you not agree?
yeah.
Our SPOS should go up this year.
Sure. So I'm not projecting any forward, it's
But that's just
0%.
So
Yeah.
that's not with any projected SPOS. And our SPOS should grow based on the 2019 now internet sales tax requirement.
Ideally it will, but as I
Ideally-
understand it, is not factored in on.
It's not factored in on this, that's all I
That's
wanted. That
yeah.
model does not reflect anything on what we may increase in 2019 SPOS.
That is correct.
That's all I wanted to know.
Based on historical trends, you're likely going to grow, right? But
Yeah.
you know, that's not on this.
If we
crystal
don't,
ball,
it'd
but-
be incredibly bad. Anything else for Andrew? He's got it tight.
Do y'all, I mean, we can talk later, but if y'all want me to be around for tomorrow night, I can. If y'all got it figured out.
For me, I understand what the decision we have to make, but
I understand, Andrew.
Okay.
This part.
We're good.
Okay. All right.
I would like to-
You know,
I would like to thank Andrew because over the years, his efforts and his diligence has saved us several millions of dollars. And he's worked very hard for us, and I want you to know, Andrew, how much we appreciate that.
Thanks. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to also say that the first time this gentleman came and visited our county, he sat politely over there about 4 hours, didn't he, Mr. Chairman, and waited very politely. And you have been a big help to our county, so we appreciate it.
Brian, I promised him that we'd never do that to him.
That, when you, I wanted to, that came to mind, Mr. Chairman, when you changed the agenda order.
I thought about that too. All right. Thanks so much. All right. Good to see you.
Good to see you again, Andrew.
I think my only question on that chart is like discussion of there and how that wording would be used, so is that we're gonna talk about that later
Well,
tonight?
we can, why don't we talk about that right now? It has to be used for a specific project in order to be able to, for the mechanics of moving it forward. And And the project that I had in mind, honestly, is that if we can do that, that puts us almost to the point of being able to go ahead and build swimming pools. Now, there's two things. I know a lot of people aren't real enthusiastic about building a swimming pool, but if you go out and talk to the citizens of the county, it's really important to them, and they'll tell you that in a heartbeat. And if you go out and talk to Kevin, he's going to tell you that it's becoming more and more and more difficult and more expensive to keep this one we've got going. He still has to come out every morning and fill it back up from the loss from leakage from the previous day. So in my mind, the real benefit of being able to move it forward a year, I mean, we're not gaining $1 million. We're just moving it forward. The real benefit, in my mind, of being able to do that would be to go ahead and build a swimming pool right away. Now, if we don't have something specific like that, that we really need to do with that $1 million, my take would be, don't move it forward. Because it's going to be wonderful for 2019, but we're going to miss that $1 million in 2020. So, unless we have something specific in mind that will make it worthwhile, in my mind, that would be a swimming pool, but unless there's something else specific in mind that would make it worthwhile, then I don't see the benefit of moving the $1 million forward.
So we have that million and the other money that we put aside for
Yeah,
2018.
we've got 600,000 at this point set aside. We would have then that million to add to that, and which would essentially say that we should go ahead and start in 2019 building a swimming pool. Otherwise, we're looking at 2021. Any other discussion on
Mr. Chairman, in moving that $1 million, is it dedicated to a SPLOST project, or can, because it is SPLOST savings, or can it be to pay for, I mean, you can't reapply that to the debt in any way, or save it to pay on the next payment of the debt?
that? No, it's my
It has to be spent on a tangible SPLOST project.
It's my understanding that the process of moving it forward for a year, it would be required to be spent on a tangible SPLOST project.
Okay, it can't be.
I'm not sure that that's totally true. I believe
Most of those issues that are remaining are non-callable, so you couldn't even apply it to the debt of the county at this point in time.
but we could, it's my understanding, apply it to a $500,000 property tax reduction.
Absolutely. There's a possibility that $1 million can it legally reduce our property tax by that $500,000?
It's my understanding, and we can clarify this, Andrew, but it's
Even
my
if
understanding
it's
from my
actually
previous
a mill, given $1 million, about $1 million
For 1 year.
It's,
for 1 year.
Then you gotta put it back.
you gotta
For
put
1
it
year.
it's my understanding from my previous discussion with Andrew that it would need to be used for a specific project.
You wouldn't have to, just because, because I want to address that comment I heard somewhere, you wouldn't have to generally put it on the next year. The citizens need to know that that $500,000 is currently covered under the SPLOST that's coming in. We just chose not to. So I want to make that clear. That $500,000 would not have to be put back on to pay the debt. Correct, Mr. Chairman? It wouldn't directly have to be.
We're at the borderline point of that, where that
Absolutely.
could be true, but it would also mean that we would have $0 available for capital spending that year.
You sure you're going to say $0 spending? You're going to go to, that's okay.
Close enough to it that, yeah.
All right,
$0.
but I want to make sure that it's understood. It wouldn't have to be. It wouldn't have to be put back on.
It would not have to be,
All right, guys.
if the current collection trend continues.
Right, and if we have continued, I just want to make sure that
Okay.
it's clear. Have to.
Yeah, I mean, I will acknowledge that.
All right.
And I will also say that without that, the progress we made in the last 4 years comes to a screeching halt. And we have made a lot of progress, but we have a long way to go. And with the debt that we've got, we don't have SPLOST funds to do anything except for that, with that $500,000.
I understand that. I just didn't want, at a lack, you're saying screeching halt, and at a lack of a better way to put it, don't want misinformation in the county that it would have to go back on. Actually, the SPOS dollars that are coming in do cover that. Now it's a matter of choice of continuing to do SPOS projects that maybe you do need, and I respect that.
I would acknowledge
Okay.
that statement, yes. Anything else on this? Then we need to start with our updates. On the Parks and Rec, is Kevin here? I know it's in there, so, oh, that's right, he's got to do. I'll give you a real quick update. Right now, about the only thing we've got going on in Parks and Rec is the basketball season is coming to an end, and he's getting ready to start with the baseball season coming up. We found out just yesterday, we've been trying to get a grant for over a year and a half now from the United States Tennis Association to build new tennis courts, or at least to help fund new tennis courts. And I'm just going to say flat out, they've just been jerking us around for a year and a half. So I had a conversation with Kevin last week, and I told him, give the guy a call that he's been talking with. Tell him if they've decided we're not going to get the grant, that's fine. Just let us know. But we're not buying any more engineering reports for them. We're not providing any more, anything that costs us money to provide. They've got everything that they ought to have at this point. They actually came back to us and said they wanted us to go ahead and put that project out to bid so that we could have a higher confidence in the amount of what it's going to cost to build the tennis courts. We told them that's not going to happen. It's been a year and a half. Tell us yes or no. So he talked to the guy yesterday and told him that. And he said, well, he understood our position. Give him 2 days. So that's where we are. This is day one of the 2 days. But I'm serious with him. What we told him is, if it's yes, tell us yes. If it's no, we will go to the next project. But we're not just going to sit here on hold all this time, doing nothing. So that will be the update from Parks and Rec. And ideally, they'll say yes. But in my opinion, if they haven't said yes by the end of the year.
How much was that for, that grant?
The grant was for $40,000, and we've already spent about $12,000 giving them engineering reports and various different things that they want. And it's like every time they tell us, okay, this is what we need, and then they come back and they say, well, we need this now. And the latest thing they came back with was, you need to put it all out to bid so we can get a more firm cost. Well, no. So that's where
And I did look at their drawings of it, and they're adding a lot of extra special things that cost more money that we really don't need to have.
we can
So
build
I
the
think
course for less money without them. Be nice to build the nicer courts with their money, funding the difference. Now, we're talking about a $40,000 grant, and we're looking at about $180,000 for building tennis courts. Now, the remainder of the money is in place as part of the Parks and Rec grant that we used to put in the playground and so forth. We kept back enough money to build tennis courts, assuming we got $40,000 from the USTA. Kevin believes that if we don't get to 40, we can still build tennis courts without, for instance, the additional fencing that they require. And they have a lot of requirements for things that we don't have now, we don't have to have, assuming we're not going to be holding any sort of professional tournaments here. The first concept that they provided us would have cost us about $1 million. I mean, they had a clubhouse.
They were going for gold.
Oh, they were. So, we've got it down now to where it is, but we're just not going to keep this in long. It's been over a year and a half.
Really
And they-
delayed our getting the courts.
Absolutely. I mean, at the very least, we could completely recondition the old courts by this point, even if we didn't build new ones. And I had the impression at the time we decided to go down this path that it was going to be a pretty quick thing. I mean, the gentleman that came to speak with us sort of talked like, well, you know, this was going to be, well, I had the impression it was going to be a slam dunk, and it was going to be pretty quick. But a year and a half is, that's enough, and $12,000. You know, at this point, I'm done.
But that engineering money that we have spent, we can still use for where we're talking about.
We can, but we'll have to modify it just a little bit because it was an engineering to the specs that they were requiring,
Right.
which we in turn, if we decide to build them on our own, would not incorporate a lot of that. So
Right.
we'll pay for a revision,
Okay.
but
But not.
it won't be like starting from scratch.
Right.
Okay, anything else on the parties or rest? Update from White Path Golf Course. Bobby, grab a couple of those chairs.
Thank you, Chair.
Back to the table.
I got chairs here. I'm sorry, sir.
Not a whole lot going on. See ya.
And swimming.
Not just a whole lot going on. What I gave y'all today is the year-end numbers. And in my opinion, it's a good number, but it could be better. And it has been better. And I think the reason for that, by my books up there, Jim can probably attest to this too. By my books, we've had over 165 days in 2018, almost 80 inches. So that's going to affect our numbers any way you look at it. If it's not raining, it's too wet. So it's not just been the last couple of months. That shows that it's been the entire year. Still good numbers. It has, like I say, it's been better, but that's, in my opinion, that's just the reason. There's been days where it's not been raining that I've had to close. When a man had 10 people that want to play golf, they're going to do more damage than what we're going to take in. And I'm not going to rather go out and they would do it on purpose. It's just too wet to be out there. The course itself is holding up really good. We've got spots that I don't know if they'll drive between now and May, but it just don't get any sun. We're just not going to drive it. But it's holding in there good. The greens are okay. They're doing fine. Our new carts that they're in, we bought about 25 last Friday, and then the others came in Monday. They're really nice. Friday when they brought it, of course it was raining, and they were just, you didn't even know they were a new car. They looked so bad we had to hand wash. And we found a couple of them that we're going to have to come and there's something on them that will come off or a scratch or something. When we get them, they need to be right. So they're already top of them. They're going to come back and do that. Jason's here. They're working on our gate down at the maintenance. The gate is installed, and now they're up there now, getting the power and everything, and the internet, whatever we need to do with it. It should. I would think it would be done maybe by the end of the week or next week, and that's part of the capital budget. But other than that, that's really all they've got going on right now.
Well, I know weather's been a big factor out there this year. I do want to give everybody here a heads up, but it's only fair. Saturday the 19th, we're going to get deep snow, ice, and record winds. And so you're gonna want to stock up. Yeah, it'll be okay Sunday. Sun's not coming out. But on Saturday, I'm going fishing. It's coming, just, If history is any indication, you can look at that.
Are you going fishing locally, or are you going somewhere else? Maybe it's going to snow there.
No, I'm going down to Sinclair, but I'm powerful enough, I can have it come.
I got you.
Okay, Jim, Public Works and Airport.
Okay, let me start with the airport first. If you all will recall, we've been dealing with a land acquisition at the airport for about 3 years now. And we have gone back and forth with an offer, and then we received a counter offer from the property owner. And we drafted a letter for a final offer, and we wanted to present that to the FAA and the Georgia DOT before we went any further. And they have been sitting on that letter for about 6 months, but they finally approved it. And we are now ready to make a final offer on this. It's 3/4 of an acre of land that lies on the northwest side of the runway, commonly referred to as the Quarles property. But that is now ready to move, and I think the final offer that is being proposed is close enough to Mr. Quarles' counteroffer that we'll be able to reach an agreement. In addition, just in the last 3 days, if you all will recall, you met in special session on December the 4th, where we presented a counter proposal to the tentative allocation letter that the chairman had received. Actually, and this was to complete the runway safety project, and we included in the revised letter acquisition of additional land that would give us the dirt on site to be able to finish the runway safety project without having to haul it some 10 to 13 miles. And we've been back and forth since October with them. Well, 3 days ago, they agreed to the proposal, the counter proposal that we made to them, which will mean about $1.4 million in grants, both for acquisition of land and the runway safety project. The runway safety project, if you will recall, Dallas and Charlie, we bid it back last fall, and the low bid came in at $2.4 million. With the revisions and with the available dirt on site, that project is estimated by our engineers now to cost somewhere about around $950,000. So what I would propose, Mr. Chairman, is that at the end of this meeting that you give me a few minutes in executive session where I can actually discuss these things freely with you.
Okay.
Road Department, Ridgeway Church Road, we are still working on. Amicalola Electric has now been able to move the trees that were identified that we were not able to move along this 1 mile stretch because of the proximity to the power lines. They did that during the month of December, and they have now started relocating the power poles. There's 15 power poles that have to be relocated to the outside edge of the right-of-way, and the relocation of the line. So once that's done, then we're actually ready to start moving it. So I would anticipate that we will have Ridgeway Church Road ready to pave when paving weather hits us. The FEMA project, the Old Bucktown project, as you all probably know, and I indicated that to you last month, Homeland Security is basically shut down. FEMA is. They're not answering phones and not responding to emails. So hopefully if the government closure is resolved, we have until the 26th of February under this project worksheet to be able to revise it. So we're still in a holding pattern on that. The 2019 LMIG grant application we have submitted. It was submitted on the 28th, I believe, of December. So we have not received any kind of feedback other than we had some corrections that we had to make to the application execution form. So that is working now. So we'll know more about that in the month of January.
Jim, can I interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any plan B at all for that old Bucktown slide if FEMA never gets?
The plan B would be, Dallas, that that we deal with those two property owners on the opposite side, that we acquired the necessary right-of-way there. We basically take the curb out, and we do it ourselves. And the only caveat that I have to that, and we discussed this last month, is that there is rock there. And if that rock has to be blasted, then we run the risk of exacerbating the slide. But if we find that, now we've done no soil exploration on that side of the road. If we find that to be the case, then we do the best that we can, and we widen the road as much as we can to the inside there, and we resolve the slide. If we do it ourselves that way, then we don't have to worry about adhering to FEMA guidelines and all of that stuff, but we have to pay 100% of the cost.
And we'll have to repay them $100,000.
And we'll have to repay them $81,000. But she hasn't used all of that. I don't know how much you got left in that, but she hasn't used all of that. But that was an advance that was given to us for engineering and soil exploration and stuff like that. So, Dallas, that's the answer, the quick answer to how we resolve it if we can't get the grant money to be able to do it.
We get to make the least worst choice.
May not be as nice, but that's what I would recommend that we do. Any other questions on roads? Okay, solid waste. I think you have in front of you the spreadsheet that I present to you every month. We have closed out our year with our tonnage for solid waste being up about 9%. What we show you there on the spreadsheet is the 2017 numbers and the 2018 numbers. Now we will drop off in January, we'll drop off the 2017 numbers and show you 2018 and 2019. But we picked up, we disposed of 6,459 tons of solid waste during 2018 as compared to 5,874 in 2017. One of the things that I want to point out to you that is part of the increase in the tonnage is that we are now taking more free solid waste than we have in the past. If you look at the sheriff's roadside trash pickup, that alone represents 30 tons that we have accepted at no cost. And in addition to that, we also have the Adopt a Road program that continues to grow. We are about 60-something roads now there. But those are good things. I mean, it's getting rid of garbage. And it's a positive thing. So, you know, any comments on our solid waste? Carlene got to see part of our facilities during the month of December. So,
I enjoyed it a lot, I learned a lot. Appreciate it.
okay. All right.
I got two questions. I see the dumpster compactor equipment was being installed out at Taylor's Creek.
Back in place yesterday. They installed the new compactor last week, Dallas, and we were able to put it in operation immediately, but we didn't have the remote control, the control inside the shack, and they installed that yesterday. So we're back complete in operation. And what they did during that time, because those open top dumpsters don't hold as much as a compacted waste, they only billed us for every fourth pull at Taylor's Creek while that compactor was out of service. Yeah.
Long time ago, we had a plan to pay at least the Kusawati Convenience Center. Is that still in our schedule?
It's still in our schedule to do, hopefully. You know, we've got so much paving and stuff ahead of us as far as the road department is concerned. I don't know how much we're going to be able to do, but it's still in our schedule to do Kusawati. Tar and chip, tar,
Yeah, right.
not asphalt. Yeah.
I would probably like to add that sometime to a future agenda to see if we can find a way to maybe outsource that little job so that we don't take road equipment to do it.
That's the problem that we have, sir, with outsourcing that little job, is that most of these paving contractors do not do tar and chip anymore, and they don't have the equipment.
Well, that's possible.
What would the problem be of getting road equipment?
Well, we're just, I'm conscious of the fact that we take road equipment and personnel and time away from roads. That's the only trade-off we're making. We had, as Jim said, we got a lot of paving work to do anyway.
Yeah,
I don't want to impact that at all. I'm trying to find a way. And yeah, fixed. What's a kind of messy, smelly problem.
We have the estimate. We've already done the estimate.
Right.
Why don't I just put out some feelers, not bidding or anything like that, and see. I do not know of a paving contractor in North Georgia that still does tar and chip.
Here's the thing, though, we're hiring.
Pardon?
You looking to play them?
I'll give you their number.
We're hiring 7 additional road crews for tonight. And that should allow us to do this sort of thing and still be able to do more.
And if we can, that's good.
My only concern is I don't want to do anything that's going to cost more money than if we go out and do it ourselves.
I know, it's money versus time, I understand.
Well, and if we weren't hiring additional people, you know, it would be a more critical thing. But with the additional people and to Brian's earlier comment with us being able to utilize lost money to continue to replace road equipment, which is the primary equipment that we've been replacing for them for the last few years, then, you know, we should be in shape to do that, and I would imagine that's no more than a day's project.
Oh, no, how many a day?
How much?
What we estimate is that we would have to shut the Coosawaty Center down probably for 3 to 5 days.
Really?
Yeah, because Charlie, it's such a tight, it's such a tight area to work in, and we would have to also raise the concrete slabs that the compactor sit on. And so that would have to be done in addition to the pavement.
Well, one thing that I want to mention here is that, first of all, I don't want us to do anything that's going to cost us more money than if we did ourselves. Secondly, y'all are going to find that I very jealously guard the day-to-day aspect of this. So what I'm going to say now is that the approval of paving it was a board decision, but beyond that, we're into the day-to-day, and this is not a full board appropriate decision.
We did approve additional people and crews and equipment for the road department.
And that's all a full board function.
We did not do that to work at the golf course or the park and rec land or the solid waste. I'm sorry, but that all goes to their budget. Go to their budget.
But you're into the
I will
day-to-day.
not move the money from the park, from roads into bridges.
All right, let me
That's
put it this
that's all
way.
I won't do. I won't change that
Well,
budget.
let me put it this way.
I won't take money away from it.
It's my job to, it's all of our jobs to create a budget. It's my job to administer a budget. And I plan to have the road department.
All due respect, I agree with that, Charlie. I will not let money be moved from one department to another.
I don't think of this as moving money from one department to another. This was,
That's a question.
this was money that was allocated, and I believe, Sandy, it was allocated in the road department's capital budget to pay Coosawaty. So there will be no moving money from department to department.
I don't know that, whether it was in, the increase in staff was in park or in the road department. So
I'm not
as
gonna
long
get-
as it's not a interdepartmental transfer of budget, I'm accepting it as day-to-day, Charlie. You're right.
Okay, well,
And we'll leave it at that. It's okay.
okay, I just want to say I am not going to, I will vigorously defend the day-to-day. We're not going to start doing this back in the.
I will continue to see that we keep that on the list. And I appreciate that.
The next thing that I want to report to you is during December, we submitted the amnesty tire grant application to EPD. And that was this year, in 2019, the amnesty grant is estimated at $20,000, and the right-of-way tire grant is at $5,000. So that will be a total of $25,000 in grant funds that we will be receiving in 2019 to deal with scrap tires. The chairman has already received back the grant contract. He executed the grant contract, and we have sent that back to EPD for the director's signature. As soon as that is approved, then we will know that the grant is 100% approved. So, that is something for the last 3 years that we have been able to do in the solid waste department. That has never been done before, and I'm proud of it. The other thing that I wanted to let you know is that the period for the amnesty tire program will be from the 15th to the 30th of April, and that is in conjunction with the Earth Day that has been set by the Keep Gilmer Beautiful Committee to be on the 27th. So, mark those days on your calendar. That's all I have.
All right, the next item will be discussion and possible action on post commissioner salary. All right, turn it over to you.
I think it's kind of comical that actually it's mine. I mean, it's this new position, so I just want to say that. However, I get it. It was Travis's before, and I appreciate the efforts he put in the last 4 years, but certainly the, in regards to this, because you will find that over the next 4 years, I am very protective of this county, and I want to make sure that we are equal, if not better, in all ways around us. And so what I did, Charlie, I gave you, along with, I see you're giving us this, first, I got a copy that didn't make. I gave you DCA's wage salary comparisons over 2016, 17, and 18. And to compare apples to apples in this category is quite the task, because there are hardly any commissioner counties that run their governments the same way. And it's something I did not know until I went to county commissioner school and found that out. But so it's hard to compare apples to apples. But if you look in there, if you want to just kind of glance with what I gave you each, that it shows the, because we're in discussion with percentage. Are you still looking for it?
You're looking for it. Go ahead.
Sure. The anyway, you'll see in 2016 it has the chairman. I'll wait for you to get there, Charlie. Oh, there it is, right underneath it now. I found it for you. With the other, sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for that, I was looking for that.
Right, sorry. Yeah.
Never mind.
On the front, it has an email from Sandy that was given to me about our base pay. That's what that front little email is. So you'll see in the 2016, again from DCA, our county commissioner chairman full-time position, and I put little marks there for you to compare. As I've done comparisons of the different structures of how the counties, their governments, local governments run or are made up, the best to compare us to are Gilmer, Pickens, Fannin, Lumpkin, and what I've really found is Lumpkin has a lot in common with us in many different ways. But, so you'll see comparisons there, comparisons of the chairman, and again, it's 2016 through 18. Their population C is primarily what we are. Fannin runs into population D. I'll let you guys kind of take a peek at that before we. It is obvious that Gilmer runs low, so I do think there is absolutely a need to increase the post commissioner's salary. Obviously, we are talking about doing this home rule. This would not affect myself or you, Dallas, in any way, but just since this topic's up, I suggested or hope that we can go ahead and clarify and get some numbers and get this done and move forward. So I think the real thing we were talking about before is the percentage.
Yeah.
To work on this that you just handed out that I had also that.
Well, I think the most effective way to do it would be simply change the percentage if we're gonna go this route. So
Right. I
currently
agree.
that's 10%.
Right.
Yeah, I think I appreciate the extra info with the survey, because it gives us a comparison, and we are a little bit below those other counties for sure. So, I think it makes sense financially that this always creates a political pushback every time we talk about this, because the amount of taxpayer money involved goes up, even if it only goes up a couple $1,000s. Having done it, if we do it, and doing it by home rule or by our local resolution is much more acceptable to me, and I think to the public. Doing it just as a percentage is a quite adequate way of dealing with it. Not having it apply to current holders of the office, I think is fair and the right thing to do, just because of the perception of giving yourself a raise is not a good perception. I'm not saying it's not deserved or not needed, but that's a different discussion. So in that sense, I like that. I will not really have a percentage figure to throw out at Charlie. I think you threw the first one out, and I think it's fair that you or Carly or someone go ahead and propose a number. And I will actually not oppose a number of those. I think it's really, really crazy, which it's not. So that's where I stand. I think we've met the needs that I see and what we need to do. I would be satisfied to not do it at all if I were to make a motion. That's what I would do, but I'm not going to make that motion. That's where I'm coming from.
You would not change it at all, or not
I would not
increase
change
it?
it. No, not at this time. It's not a good time to do that's all. That's a personal judgment on my part, but that's not to say it's not something that can be done. But that's my position, if I had my choice. So that is where I'm coming from.
Since we're looking at 2 years out anyway, and
Yes,
the other
yeah.
counties have increased each year. So this is, I think, you threw out 20% to begin with. You and I had some discussion before I took oath of office. So we talked about 18%. I think going any lower than 18%, I'm in favor of at least 18%. I think that this position, it requires a lot of hours. And the last
No doubt.
9 months of just sitting in on meetings and learning and doing, that I have had the honor of sitting in on and getting to know this position. It takes a lot of hours. It is not just this hour or 5 that we sit at this table.
Let me add one more comment to that comment I made about that. I'm assuming, and this is a question, we can make this change. Like you said, it won't be effective this year or next year, because there is no election in between. But in any event, I would like to see this not become an increase to the overall budget. Somehow we'd be able to find the funds for this out of what we already or would normally have. In other words, it becomes a equal, reduce the budget in one area and increase it in the salary area if we do it. You know what I'm saying? And I think with the amount of money, we can find a way to do that. That way, there is no increase to the taxpayer in the overall budget if we do it. That's all. Put that in perspective.
I think in the budgeting process, we reduce everywhere we can reduce. If we say that we're going to do this and then we fund it by reducing somewhere else, then we would be acknowledging, I think, that we're not already reducing as much as we can. So in my mind, we budget, we do zero-based budgeting. We budget the amount that we feel is necessary. We never budget more than the amount that we feel is necessary, therefore we would never have somewhere we could actually swap funds for.
Actually, we never budget enough.
Well,
We
that's
get right
true.
down to it.
That's true. We usually, we budget very conservative.
Yes,
That, of course, is my preference to continue to do that.
yes. mine too.
But I think that is sort of at a crossroads with the idea of funding any post-commissioner raises by reducing something somewhere else, because ideally, we've already reduced everywhere else to as much as we can. Now, we generally, for the last few years, have been having a contingency fund that ranges anywhere from 400,000 to 600,000. We're talking about $16,000 here. So if we do this, in my mind, the contingency fund, instead of being 400,000, would be, 386,000 maybe. But to say that we're going to take money somewhere else implies that we've left money somewhere else, and I have a little bit of a problem with that. If that makes sense.
No, I know what you're saying. The contingency is an option.
Well, I think if you do zero-based budgeting, excuse me, if you do zero-based budgeting, which is what we do, you just throw out there what you have to have,
Yeah.
and you budget it, and this would just be part of what we have to have. And then the contingency is determined once you figure out how much you have to spend.
I agree. The alternative is to increase the revenues. That is not acceptable. Because we didn't budget, we don't have money coming in that we didn't plan on. In fact, that's not the answer.
We
That's
try
all
to be
I-
conservative on the revenue estimates
As we
too,
should be.
because
Right.
I'd rather be conservative on the revenue estimates honestly than on the expenditures if we had to choose.
I agree.
Because I do not want to get less money than we thought we had, and we budgeted money that we wound up not having. So,
And we've done well on that.
yeah.
That principle of policy, that approach.
So I would say if we do this, we just continue that idea of zero-based budgeting, and we just plug that figure in, and we continue on with budgeting as little as we can in every other category.
So that's your,
I see a hand.
Yes, Brian?
I just have a couple quick questions. In the comparables that Commissioner Ferguson ran, are the insurance comparables in that also per county? Did you check any of the benefits? I mean, are they a full line of comparables that you did?
actually, I did not go that far, but I believe, I do not know. I'll say I did not go
Okay,
that far.
because although
I believe, Brian,
I
that they
apologize.
do
You
receive
believe they do, but you didn't
yes,
do the comparables
I did
because
not.
Gilmer County Post Commissioners are available, I don't want to misuse the word benefit, they're available for you to purchase insurance at the same rate as county employees. Am I correct, Mr. Chairman?
correct.
So in that comparable you did on salaries, you
I
didn't do any kind of benefit comparable.
Well, I don't believe that DCA includes their benefits
Right.
in this, so we're still sort of comparing, I compared salaries.
So I want to say this, and not to be out of order, Mr. Chairman. I'm disappointed in 2019, the first discussion item of the county is to see how to come up with an 18% increase for post-commissioners' pay, when we all know for several years, the county employees were not able to get any kind of increase, and the cost of living increase is an average of 3%. But I'm a little disappointed this being the first item of 2019 that seems to be significant enough to be the first discussion item. I wish it would have been how to reverse some of the property tax on the citizens and not this discussion here. And I will say that because, you know, I heard Commissioner Ferguson say it takes a lot of hours. In all due respect, it does, but I have your qualifying paperwork here. You knew what it paid when you signed up. You knew what it paid when you put your name on the ballot. And I do know out of respect this would not affect you. But for this to be the first discussion item, Mr. Chairman, I'm disappointed in that. That's all I have to say. I apologize.
Item 23?
Huh?
Would you have preferred it been item 23?
I haven't looked at item 23 yet, sir.
I mean, that far down.
That far down. So, but an 18% increase, I'm not going to object to any way whatsoever. Whatever you do, that would be what you do. But an 18% increase in post-commissioner's pay with not a comparable,
8%.
I thought I heard 18.
Well, we're already at 10, so 18 would be an 8% increase.
You already had 10, right, right. You said 10, you want to move it to 18. Okay, so, all right, so, all right, so regardless. Anyhow, I wish that this would not have been the opening item of 2019. I apologize if I'm out of order, sir.
Nope, you're not out of order. Okay, anything else on this? So tomorrow night, we'll need to make a decision on it. There are other changes that we need to make when we do this, just to sort of clean things up a bit. And we've discussed them previously. The one sentence in here, the compensation provided for in this section shall constitute the entire compensation from the fund of Gilmer County, to which chairperson and other members of the Board of Commissioners shall be entitled. There is a question as to whether or not that prohibits the $100 a month for becoming certified. We don't have a legal opinion that it does. There's just a question mark there. And I think we decided that served no useful purpose anyway, so I think we should just remove that sentence if we go forward with making a change here.
I don't think that does serve a purpose in my mind, and what's said here, it does not. It doesn't do anything relative to the compensation. Yeah, I agree.
So there would be two changes that I would say if we go forward with this would be to change the 10% to whatever and eliminate that sentence. Any other questions on that? If not, did you have? Thought I heard. Okay. If not, next item will be a discussion of possible action on hazardous mitigation plan. Tom, would you fill us in on what we're looking at here?
Yes, every 5 years, the federal government, along with GEMA, allows us, or requires us to form a hazard mitigation committee, which includes all of the local governmental entities, all of the public safety entities, large infrastructure stakeholders, and anybody else that would like to come and contribute data to that plan, which we spend time, we meet monthly, sit down and everybody gives their input of the different hazards that face Gilmer County and the impacts that each one of those things has to each one of those stakeholders. And along with that, we formulate solutions and things that would be helpful to help to mitigate those hazards once they have happened. Our plan is complete. We did have a very productive meeting this last time. A lot of things do stay the same as what they have been in the past because the hazard doesn't change, and everything that we submit to FEMA is within their guidelines. Everything that we submitted to GEMA is within their guidelines for approval. This is just the final process of Gilmer County adopting the plan so that we can move forward to the final sign-off by FEMA.
Anybody have any questions regarding the plan itself?
It's a big, thorough plan, I can see that. I had a question, and I apologize for not remembering the answer to this, Tony, but does the Water and Sewer Authority participate in that planning?
Yes, absolutely they do.
They have a major
They do. The Water and Sewer
impact,
Authority,
a stakeholder.
the Corps of Engineers, they're a key stakeholder as well, and they have been at the table each and every time that we've met and have given very important input each time.
And this does kind of fall into the category of something we have to do.
Yes.
Thank you.
But it's a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So we would simply make that approval tomorrow.
Yes, sir. It will be the official adoption of Gilmer County of the hazard mitigation plan, which is the final step for FEMA to approve the process.
Any other questions on the hazard mitigation plan? All right.
You got a question?
Yeah, is that open to the public?
It is.
How can the public find that?
You can come to my office anytime. I'll be glad to give you a copy of it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Discussion of possible action on equipment for the jury room.
Really no changes there, and I hate to say this, but I think we're not giving it much attention across the board, but we do have a date set, as you know, or I hope everyone would hear on February 15th, which is a Friday. Linda Sue was offered to give us our demo room in the courthouse itself. There's no court going on that day, nor any activities that would use, particularly we people doing court work that day. So that was an ideal day that she proposed. And, so that is a fixed date that we will work towards. And if there are more vendors that we can think of, that's fine. It should be open, but I know
I do have
are
an
interested.
I do have an update.
Okay.
On that. I've been working with Rob and Stan,
Yeah.
and Cameron on this. Because we want this to be something that is a three-county,
Yes.
Across the circuit project rather than us do our thing and then do theirs. We did have Johnson Controls come and met with DJ yesterday. And so they'll be giving us an estimate.
Okay.
I spoke with Alan Davenport, DTC, and we'll be asking that they provide an estimate for us. We've got the one. If we think of anybody else, we're happy to do that. The only thing is we ask these folks to, rather than thinking of it as three independent projects, that they come to each county and check each courtroom and needs and consider this to be one three-county project.
I agree with that.
So that's the stipulation that we've asked them for.
I think that's fair.
Rob and I are all in agreement that in terms of trying to do the same thing.
And I will say, having spoken with Judge Weaver, that's her
That is her
position, right, to be circuit line.
And the other thing is that we're all starting from a little bit of a different point, because each of us had what we've got put in at a different time. So one of the discussions that we had yesterday, as a matter of fact, was that an entity may be able to come in and have to do something different in Pickens, for instance, than they have to do in Gilmer, because of the existing equipment. So what we've said is we're not concerned with whether the equipment matches. We want the interface to match. We want, if somebody plugs in their laptop and projects onto a screen in Gilmer, we want them to be able to plug in a laptop and project on the screen in Pickens and Fanning. We don't particularly care what equipment is behind that that's doing it. We just want it to be transparent to the user. So.
I think the user interface is the key.
Exactly.
And that's what you're saying, and I don't disagree. And there may be some unique situations in each county. I haven't found anything that I really thought was different, having toured different courtrooms. power plug where you need it. Some of them do. Some of them might have a cable connection and others don't. So there are differences in the kind of back alley, but you do not want to have, everybody I think is in agreement that the interface or the use of it and the operation of it will be consistent. And I will add, beyond that, I would like to add to that personally that same technology be capable of dealing with any open meetings from different boards, whether it's a planning, a zoning, or accessory board, any of those. I think I would like to see that be actually a sort of a standard for all county things that we require that type of equipment, recording and display and audio and video kind of stuff. So just to make sure you don't create a real closed system, it'll be more available. So that's a future thing that I can see as a benefit of doing it.
One of the things that we also agreed on yesterday is that we don't want to try to rush this to the extent that we overlooked that kind of thing.
No.
So we've all got it in our 2019 budgets different now. Because we've all got it. Something budgeted for 19. And we're all in agreement that as long as we can get it done in 19, we don't want to be in such a hurry that we'll lose something. So
I agree with that as well.
And DJ tells me that we currently have everything operational in the courtrooms. There were several things that weren't functional, but currently everything is functional. Of course, it's a nightmare to keep it functioning, which is one of the reasons we want to do this, but we have to have everything functional.
I will say that, to my knowledge, this is the first project that I'm aware of ever that is being attempted on a 3-county basis in Gilmer, Fannin, and Pickens. There may be one that I'm not aware of because I've not been here my whole life, but if there has been one, I probably can say it wasn't successful. My goal is to see that this becomes the first successful multi-county project that we go with, and I appreciate the other commissioners and judges' help with that. I think that's a good move.
But the other counties are on board with it, so that's right. Anything else on the equipment?
I will. I think it would be helpful to give the judge and the board a suggested starting point on a calendar because of what you mentioned, that we can kind of work toward so that we don't stop and not get it done, but not to push us either. I think that would be helpful to have everybody on sort of a mental calendar thing, and I'll be happy to throw the first one out and then we can go from there, just to see when we think we can deal with it. Because otherwise, we need to make sure we can get done this year.
We do this year. But the first thing we need is to have these folks.
Yeah, then that's the first thing on the
Tell us what we
schedule. Exactly.
And I got to tell you, we're getting some wildly differing figures. The 3 counties in terms of what we can. Okay, anything else on the equipment? Okay, the next thing is going to be discussion of possible action on the BOC contract with the Chamber of Commerce.
I know.
Can I interrupt? Can we do a quick other general discussion? I just have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Do you know if the Board of Health has met relative to that discussion we had on the minimum lot size?
They have not, and the next meeting is going to be March, I believe.
Oh.
And I have that, and I will be present at that meeting, and I have it on my calendar to bring that up.
Just wanted to get an update on that. Secondly is, there's a large renovation project going on at the library right now. I just happened to be able to tour that last week. Very nice job they're doing. I think they're gonna finish up in 60 days or less, I don't know, it's coming close. Do we have any need to be involved in that at all?
Actually, we have been.
Yeah. We've been,
We haven't had any discussion about it.
Right.
well, we haven't been involved in federal funds. They're doing it with that.
Yeah.
But the architectural design initially that they had among other things, custom heating and air units that were going to be very much more expensive. Now, it's none of our business if they don't spend any grant money on more expensive heating and air. But going forward, we're expected to maintain it.
Correct.
So the discussion that we had with them, we don't care what you put in, as long as when something fails, we can fix it off the shelf. Which would not have been the case with what the architect had designed. And so there was a pretty robust discussion about that, and in the end, they decided they couldn't do it without off-the-shelf equipment. So we've been involved in that sort of deal with it.
I mean, it's a pretty big deal. You're talking I think 8,000 square feet.
And there's one other thing that we have talked about and have agreed to do with them that will be counterpart, and that is we're going to pave an area behind the library, a little roadway where they can come in.
There'll be a driveway and a paved parking area.
There's none there now.
No, it's not there now, and as I understand it, they have it in their grant to pay for it. But Public Works, we will be involved there as well.
They're doing a great job at the library.
Okay.
Okay, so I asked, as learning over the last 9 months, and first of all, I want to say thank you to what I feel like as family, all the eyes looking at me, that I am thankful you're here, and so very thankful for all that you do for Gilmer County. Because I know the hours that all of you, and I'm referring to our Chamber of Commerce board members that are here, and if you will, actually, just raise your hand for a second, just so that everybody sees who you are. So these are all volunteers that do so much for our county and have for years. When going over the budgeting, and being allowed to sit in and really participating or realizing the budget, I was surprised at myself when we got to hotel motel tax money and funding and how it's spent, that something just alarmed my spirit, if you will, my heart. So I've done some research into it. I think most of all, I am mostly just a little concerned and not ready to fully engage with or continue with the contract with the Chamber of Commerce at this moment, because I've been a chamber member for a long time. I've worked for the chamber, but I have not been involved in planning yet. And Paige and John and Bobby and I had a great meeting earlier this week, and it hasn't been discussed here, but I believe I'm being asked to be the representative to sit on the chamber board, but for the county commissioner. And I look forward to that time to really understand the mindset and the planning of the Chamber of Commerce board and their direction. But for me as a new commissioner, I am going to always vote on my heart and my prayerful thoughts and consideration, and there is some concern there in my heart. And I'm just telling you honestly, it's what I told Paige and Bobby, and I don't know what it is. It may totally go away, you know, when I am with the board and I understand and hear their hearts. But for now, the only way for me to prevent the contract and the percentages that are given now, the 70% that is entrusted to the Chamber of Commerce, is to terminate that contract. And unfortunately, we're in a time constraint where the contract reads that if we don't terminate it by January of 2015, I believe, January 15th, 2019, is that right, correct date, it's something like that, that, then it will automatically roll over to 2020. Something about it just doesn't sit well with me, so I would ask the chairman and Commissioner Miller to give some consideration to terminating the contract with the with the chamber, just to give me a little bit of time to see what their direction is, see what their plans are. I think that it may just take that and we may renegotiate a very similar contract. There are some things that have come up in this process of exploring this that we realize now need to be put in that contract. So for you, Commissioner Miller and Charlie, I'm just asking that we consider terminating the contract at this time to give me just a little bit of time to.
What are the things that you feel need to be put into the contract?
I think that possibly moving back the, I want some more time to look into it. So the one of the things is our next agenda item that we've realized that an audit is expected of specifically to motel tax dollars funding. So I would like to see that put in the contract. I think that could be why there was some oversight there. But and then maybe pushing back. David, as county attorney, suggested that we possibly push back the date so that it doesn't fall on the newly elected person, right away, the date of renewal. So for me coming in, that I would have a few more months to look it over before.
I know that the chamber has a prepared statement that they would like to make, and I want to have them have the opportunity to make that statement. But before we do that, I'd like to say a few things about it. I know that I have indicated to both of you that I oppose terminating the contract. I haven't really, I think, indicated how adamantly I oppose it. I think that if we do that, we're going to be making a very, very, very serious mistake for Gilmer County. Right now, we have two primary sources of funding. The first is property tax. Property tax is the funding that we have a direct control over. We can determine how much it's going to be if we're willing to raise the millage rate or lower the millage rate. We can decide how much we're going to get in property taxes. And honestly, we don't want to touch that, really. The other is sales tax. I have said many times over the last 4 years, and I think I have gotten general agreement, that when we talk about trying to increase revenues, what we're really talking about is we need to increase the sales tax, which is to say we need to increase tourism and to raise that sales tax revenue number rather than getting into property taxes. We do know that we need expenses go up every year. We need to make sure that the revenue grows every year. But in my mind, we have got to do everything we can to make sure that that revenue growth is in sales tax, not in property taxes. And the bottom line is that this means tourism. Now, we have relied on the Chamber of Commerce to increase our tourism for a number of years. And they've done that. I mean, we see more and more tourism every year. They co-sponsor the Apple Festival every year, which is a tremendously large project and brings in a lot of money to Gilmer County. They have other events throughout the year. They advertise Gilmer County throughout the state. They've been very successful in placing good articles about Gilmer County in various magazines that interest people to come to the for the mountain biking, for the wineries, for the apple festival, whatever it is we have to offer. They've been very happy with doing that. They've been very supportive of our local businesses. And one of the, I think most economic development folks will tell you that you want to go out and get as much business as you can, but you never want to ignore the business you already have. You need to do everything possible to make sure that the businesses that already exist in this county are successful and become more successful. And I think the chamber is just, our businesses are chamber members. They're very enthusiastic about the chamber. In my opinion, we have arguably the best chamber in the state of Georgia. The amount of money that we're talking about to the chamber, we give them 70%. We're required to give them 40%. So the first question that I would have is, if we decide we're going to cut this amount, which is what's at the crux of all of this, what will we do with that money better than what the chamber could do? As I read our agreement with the chamber, there are several places in there where Georgia law is quoted. One of which indicates that hotel funds can only be used through a contract with certain approved entities and only for certain prescribed purposes. It cannot just go into the general fund. So if we take this money away from them, we have to have something in mind that we want to do with it instead through some third party that is legally approved in this statute. I don't see that we've got that. If we didn't have it, I'm back to what can we do with this money better than what the chamber does? Because if we don't use the money to promote tourism, we're cutting our own throats. And if we do use the money to promote tourism, honestly, we have better things to do, bigger fish to fry, and so forth, than taking that function away from the chamber, particularly when they're doing it so well. The amount of money that we're talking about taking from them, honestly, is a relatively insignificant amount to the county. Now, don't, Brian Pritchard, get me hung up on that word insignificant.
What'd you say? Let me say here.
Don't say it.
Insignificant.
You have to get it first.
3 syllables or plus I have
In terms of the amount that we would take away from them, there's just not a lot that we can do in terms of county operations with that amount. And again, if we do anything with it other than promote tourism, we are absolutely cutting our own throats, because what's going to happen? Well, first of all, the point I'm making is it's a relatively insignificant amount to the county that we can use from things. It's vital to the chamber. It's a whole lot bigger part of their budget than it would be adding it to our budget. It would, in fact, in my opinion, pretty much just gut the chamber. And it puts them in a very bad position. They've got great employees at the chamber that will then wonder, because we decided we're going to terminate that agreement when it expires at the end of 2019. Of course, they're going to wonder, do I have a job after this? And what's going to happen is, if we haven't renewed this agreement in the first few months, they're going to start looking somewhere else. I would. And they're good people. They're going to find something. And so what's going to happen is, even if we ultimately decide that, okay, we'll renew the contract, we've damaged the structure and the economic viability of the chamber in what we've already done to them. Places the chamber in a bad position because a lot of the funding that they get, a lot of the advertisers that they get, a lot of business that they get is contingent on them being seen as a viable entity into the future. And if we say they may be looking at an end date of 2019 in terms of the county's support, you know, a lot of this is going to go away. And in fact, this was one of the primary reasons that we did the amendment to the contract that moved the end date out and required a longer period of notice for them was to accommodate some of these people, some that do the funding and so forth, that require demonstrably viable entity out into the future. It hurts their reputation. I think with what we've done here, we've already hurt their reputation.
Absolutely.
I don't want to make it worse. Right now, I think if you go out amongst the counties in Georgia, you'll find that Gilmer County Chamber has probably about the best reputation of any chamber in the state of Georgia. And they've worked hard for that, and we're just in what we're doing here, we're sort of tearing that down. And I hate to see that. The other thing is that if we take this money away from them, and we're not as successful in using it to promote tourism as they have been, and we will not be, then what's going to happen is we're not going to notice it in 19 because the money won't be gone in 19. We probably won't notice it in 20 because it'll take a little bit for the effects to be seen. When we do notice that, our tourism is way down, our sales tax is way down, and we're in a bind, we're going to be in a situation where it's just going to be too late to fix this quickly. We're going to have to start rebuilding again. And it'll take years to get back to where we are right now. And I really hate to see that happen. In Gilmer County, we've made a lot of big strides in the last 4 years. I occasionally will talk to people about what we call the state of the county. Write some articles every now and then, and I never hesitate to brag on what we've been able to accomplish over 4 years. And it's about a 45-minute brag, so I'm not going to get too far into it now. I'm simply going to say that I believe Jim Smith will attest to the fact that the road department is a completely different place now, equipment-wise and personnel-wise, than it was 4 years ago. If you go out to Parks and Recs and you take a look at the new playground and you take a look at the extended walking path and just the general condition of River Park, I think you'll see that there's been just tremendous efforts made there. And it's across the board, whether we're talking about planning and zoning, fire department, we've done a lot within the fire department to try to attract better qualified medics and so forth. We have done in 4 years, in my opinion, what I never, 4 years ago, if somebody had told me we could come this far in 4 years, I would not have believed it. Now, I have been looking forward to the next 4 years because we did not have a situation that could be corrected in 4 years. We don't know that. I don't know if we got a situation that can be corrected in 8 years, but if we can make the same progress in the next 4 years that we've made in the past 4 years, and that's what I'm looking for, it's going to be really good for Gilmer County. In my mind, we're putting all that at risk, and I cannot, in good conscience, support anything that has such far-reaching implications, such potentially disastrous implications, I think, for Gilmer County. I would like to say, I know that there's been some mention over the last 3, 4, 5 months of us, what we will allow the chamber to do, what oversight we need to provide to the chamber and make sure they do this, don't do that. Again, from the agreement that we have with them, it specifically states the chamber is an independent organization. It is not to be construed as an agent of the county. The relationship between the county and the chamber will be as between a principal and a contractor. Now, that means they don't take instructions from us. We're not responsible for overseeing their operation. The contract further states that no restrictions shall be placed by the county on the undertakings of any member of the board of directors of the chamber or its individual members. We have an agreement that says we give 70% of the hotel motel, and they use that to further tourism in Gilmer County. We've given them our 70%, and in my opinion, they've gone over and above their, and the success that they've had in increasing tourism in Gilmer. I believe that it's just absolutely vital that this commission not hamper and especially not destroy the effectiveness of the chamber in growing tourism and thus sales tax revenues. And I just can't stress that enough. What I would propose and what I will propose tomorrow night, I know there's concerns about audits. And I know that that Section 4 hasn't always been complied with. I think that was acknowledged last year. And they've corrected it. They're complying now with everything here. So what I would say is that they have acknowledged and agreed that they will comply with Section 4, which is they'll give us the budget, they'll give us quarterly reports and so forth. There is something that they do give to Gilmer County, to Fannin County right now, which is called an agreed upon procedures letter that's associated with their audit every year. And I will be making a motion tomorrow night that be made a requirement, that we modify the agreement to require that they do provide that agreed upon procedures letter every year relative to their audit. And hopefully that will take away a lot of any concerns there. But I gotta tell you, this is, if I haven't conveyed the importance of this to me, and I think to Gilmer County in the statements that I've made, then, I guess I'll have to go back and write something with a blunder. But I cannot support this, I will not support this, and even if it's approved, I'll continue for the reasons that I've stated. And with that, y'all have a statement that you'd like to make.
Thank you, Chairman Harris, and thank you to everyone. I would like to read just a statement that's prepared for today. I, on behalf of the Executive Committee and Board of Directors, respectfully ask that you three reconsider the termination of the contract services and the potential reduction or defunding of existing tourism efforts. While we understand the weight of the responsibility you feel in regards to the tax dollars collected by our lodging partners, I believe that the track record and history of our stewardship of the funds speaks for itself. We're at a critical juncture in our efforts, as only now we are able to consider projects and promotions that were not available to us until the dollars grew to the level they are currently. Please do not impede those efforts and continue to allow us to implement the plans we shared with you over the past year. Just as many of the other actions you take have effect over multiple years, the termination of the contract in place will have immediate and long-lasting effects. Plans that are already in place for the launch of the new marketing campaign will be delayed or stopped. Additional efforts to make the Watkins House a first-class welcome center will be delayed. Multi-year contracts with our public relations partners will not be possible, and third and fourth quarter advertising will be delayed and more. Our efforts do not begin and end with the turning of a new year. To be effective, they must be strategic and long-lasting. Defunded or reduced funding towards those efforts, or even extended negotiation periods without resolution, will have immediate and long-term effects on the great work that's been done by so many to bring us to this point in time. In the last half of 2018, throughout your budget process and beyond, we committed to each of you to have an open dialogue this year and to answer any questions you have in regards to our efforts. That commitment is as strong today as it was when it was made. I ask that you allow those conversations to take place in a collaborative environment this year and not under the weight of contract negotiations and the threat of reduced funding. I have a copy for each of you.
Thank you. I will offer one further final comment. And I'm going to try to say this in such a way that it doesn't sound like we have to go to certain amount. In the course of the last 4 years, we've had, in my opinion, one of the smoothest operating, cordial, effective commissions in this state. Doesn't mean that I've agreed with everything that's been done. And it would be unrealistic for me to imagine that I could agree with everything that's been done. There are three of us, and we're going to be three. And that's the beauty of three of us, is that we can have three different perspectives on things. There have been only 2 instances in the last 4 years that I felt that a decision from this commission cost Gilmer County money that was not necessary. But it was, I was the minority, that's fine. The other 2 commissioners didn't agree with my point of view. This is not like that. I believe that if we go forward with terminating this agreement, it is going to rip this commission apart. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Anything else? Oh, yes.
So, thank you, Chairman. I totally agree with everything that you said and the long-lasting impacts. I, as a business owner and a chamber board member, first of all, I 100% as a business owner and chamber members support the chamber. I think they do great things. I don't always support everything they do. Again, we all have our differences. I feel like we're going about this the wrong way. I think it would serve the citizens of Gilmer County much better if why wouldn't we put this year under review instead of chop it off and then start over? I'm confused there why we want to terminate a contract and then try to rebuild. Why wouldn't we, if there's questions in how the money is spent and the stewardship of what we do with that and what you want us to do with that, then why wouldn't we just do the audit, look at that, be more active? It's always been an open chamber thing. You have access to that to know where that money's spent, right? So if that's a question, I'm still confused on why we would take such rash actions instead of just trying to fix the problem. I feel like we're doing away with it instead of trying to work towards a solution.
Okay. Brian, I'm going to let you go next and ask this lady first.
Me?
Yeah, you had your hand up. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah.
You were.
That's all we talked about.
Well, I just
You're
have
more
one question.
important than
So my
Brian, so
question
you
just
go ahead.
is what is the concern with it? Why are we wanting to terminate? I mean, what is the big concern? Why is there such a push for it? And that's, yeah, that will go to you.
The concern is because it automatically rolls over the contract by January 15th into 2020.
Right, I
So
get that part.
This part.
So why wouldn't we give it a year in review, though? That's my question. Why would we take such a rash?
The only reason we have to terminate, and that, I don't like the language, I don't like it the way it has to be done, but that's the way it has to be done to prevent it from rolling into 2020. I get your review. I've sat here for 9 months. I've seen the way it's spent. I'm gonna say something, that when you have a previous commissioner who sat on the chamber board, and then now you have me, who was with the Chamber of Commerce as tourism coordinator. Hear my hearts. There is nothing more important in this town than tourism and the businesses. So this was a surprise to me, you guys. I did not expect, but there's something that is bothering me. I just need more time. All I'm asking for is time. To terminate this does not affect your 2019 budget.
But it does.
I understand.
It does. There's no way that it can't. There's no way that it can
Mr.
affect
Chairman,
it.
out of listening to everything, I am a member of the chamber, but I'm going to actually say this as a taxpayer here. I know Commissioner Ferguson was at school training during the last meeting, and I came to the podium, and I have it on video, and I came to the podium, and I told you, I addressed you and Mr. Miller here, and then Post Commissioner Crouch, and passionately said, don't do anything else to raise my taxes. Remember that? Don't do anything else that will result in raising my taxes in this county.
Yes, we do.
What I hear here is it ends up uncertainty. And I'm going to tell you something. The headlines, I don't know what they will be in the two reporters in the room, but if the headlines come out, okay, Gilmer BOC terminates contract with Chamber of Commerce. Well, it may be later in the article that you read it's going to be renegotiated or whatever. But if that is the headline, that's going to resonate. And I'm going to tell you something right now, okay? Headhunters across this state, because we hear everybody talk, this chamber is so well thought of statewide and in other states that headhunters are going to dig right into our chamber and start saying and place phone calls to our people saying there's uncertainty in your county. Now I understand what you're saying, you want to do it, but perception's not reality, but perception's real. And the perception will be the uncertainty we have in Gilmer County. Now, that being said, okay, I apologize for how this sounds, but for you to come here and share your emotion, that's an emotion of something in your heart is troubling. Okay? I'd prefer you not do something drastic or present something drastic by your emotion to terminate a contract that could affect the taxpayers of this county. I'm sorry to put it that way. There's $26 million in this budget. $26 million. And I wish, and I apologize in a room full, I wish something else was laid on your heart. Like the $354,000, I wish emotionally it was on your heart to look deeper into a $2.6 million budget where we spent $354,000 to build a fire station at Cherry Lawn. So all due respect, I'm very concerned on why this is necessary. 12 years, I did some research. I talked to Mr. Miller yesterday, and we talked about it because he always gives me a different perspective. And in transparency, you and I had a conversation on this, about the termination. Then I checked out. We haven't terminated this in 12 years. I mean, and you say you sit here for 9 months and looked at this. I'm really confused. I'm going to tell you now what the two of you, and I don't know, I didn't hear Mr. Miller whether he's going to resonate in this, but you are. You're going to send shockwaves just with the word termination. Take a year, put it all on the table, and let them do the math for you. But just the fact of saying you're going to terminate something, you know, I hope you reconsider that. I hope you do. And I can't question your heart. I apologize for that. But if that is the emotion and some things that you have seen, and my opinion, maybe you're carrying some water from the last term to this term, because these are on video, Mr. Crouch. So maybe you and the post commissioner, former post commissioner, have discussed this, and this is something high up the level. But I'm going to tell you right now, as soon as the headlines go out that Gilmer County terminates contract with Chamber, it's going to resonate. Just think that out. Just think it out.
I wish there was some way to not use the word terminate, to roll into or consider adjusting our percentages in a different way. But there's not.
Well, wait a minute.
First of all, I'd like to go back a bit and address some things that you said, Chairman. I absolutely agree. This chamber has done a phenomenal job. I have thought for years since I sat as tourism coordinator that there are some things that don't make sense for the chamber to pay for, that it makes more sense for the county. Did I know that years later I would be sitting in this position? Absolutely not. And I'm referring to gateway signage and things that I believe would increase our sales tax dollars. So I am in no way trying to, I'm only looking at those two ways of increasing revenue. I understand the reputation of the chamber. I understand how the advertising in dollars, I wish there was another way to do it, but it's like at some point, if we ever consider renegotiating the percentage that we give them, that's the way to do it. But I'm not even asking to do that, I'm just asking for time.
The problem is, we have, as you stated, we have to do that by terminating the contract. And to Brian's point, it's not gonna take a headline that says we terminated their contract, although that would be worst
Chatter.
case. Just a comment, just a headline saying that we're having these discussions.
Mr. Chairman, when we opened today, and I'm sorry to be, but we had Andrew here, right?
Yes.
And part of his presentation, and I do know the economy's doing better, but part of his presentation was the increase in SPOS revenue, correct? And most of the time, when the citizens of this county is sold to vote again for SPOS, we're sold on how many people outside of the county come in and spend money, and the revenue goes up, correct?
Yes.
Correct, and all that, and the opening of today was the increase of SPOS in this county to the point, which you and I have had discussions, that SPOS could actually close to pay the debt now, correct? Why would you do one thing, just one thing that could turn that around? Whether it's just, it's the perception, I understand the word terminate, but why would you even entertain one thing right now, in the way the county is, that would possibly turn that around? Because I lack of a way to put it, anger. I am tired of my taxes going up.
Well,
I'm tired, and you know that about me, and we've had those discussions. Don't take the chance. You're hearing the pluses.
yeah, I agree.
I apologize.
We got another comment over here, but let me say that if things like gateway signage is important enough that we do this to the chamber so that we can do gateway signage, my support for gateway signage is gone. I will not support it. But just because of the trade-off, I can't. I'm not going to essentially gut the chamber so that we can have gateway signage. I think it's a good idea. I like to have it, and I don't see it as something we can't have and have the chamber do what they do. But if we're saying that we need to take the money to the chamber so we can do gateway signage, then I'm out for gateway signage. We have one ahead of me that can't deny.
Commissioner Ferguson, so I understand where you're coming from, that you have questions and concerns about how the chamber manages that money and where it's spent and what it goes to. Is that?
I actually don't. I know you guys spend the money correctly. What weird with the audit, I guess is what you're referring to?
Because
that is in state law, and we're just trying to make sure that we're following the law.
Okay, so now you
and
just
it hasn't
totally
been done.
lost me, because I thought you were taking the money because we were not spending it the way that you wanted.
Absolutely not.
So where's your heart wrong with it then? I'm confused.
You know what? I honestly, I can't put my finger on it. The research that I do, okay, I didn't want to say some things out in public. The research I do, there's a large percentage of hotel multi tax that we give to the chamber, to one source. Many other counties do not give that much money. There are a lot of different other options that can bring new sales tax and new tourism. I don't want to be in the tourism business. Been there and done that, and now I'm sitting in this position. I think they do a fantastic job. I am just asking for time, to give me a little bit of time to look into possibilities, to hear what you guys have planned, to see if it's on the same thing that
I get that part. I totally understand that
So
part.
I'm not questioning how you spend money.
What Ken has to say about it.
Well, I can say a lot of things about it, but, I spoke to one of the mayors this morning, I spoke to the other mayor yesterday. We were talking about just general things, about how well things are going in our community, even the relationship with the commission board. This actually impacts the two cities as well, but it impacts a ripple effect that's going to go out a great distance for a great period of time. Andrew, in his presentation, talked about volatility. All we have to do is look at the stock market to see every time there's a tweet that goes out from one branch of the government or a potential, or I guess soon to be Speaker of the House that has her opinion to say, there's impact that happens across our whole economy. There's going to be impact from this that is going to be localized in Gilmer County that's going to impact our whole economy. But beyond that, I've got a lot of respect for all three of you. I know where the weight of being in this position and wanting to do it right is coming in, and I respect where Carlene's coming from. She's had 9 months to sit here and listen. Dallas, you've had 6 years to sit here and listen, and I think she can make a proposal, but Charlie's already stated he doesn't support it because of the damage it would do. I hate to put you on the hot seat, my friend.
That's why I get paid.
But you're the swing vote on this. You've got 6 years of experience sitting here, seeing what's happened over that 6 years period of time, even more than our chairman has. And you can put a stop to this right now if you share with us where you stand on this.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll give you my thoughts and speak them as long as you give me a break to get a cup of coffee and take a bathroom break.
10 minutes, folks.
There we go, I appreciate it.
And I'm agree with you.
I don't see
Oh, I'm so sorry. We're going
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll keep it short relative to what I usually do. I hate to be in the middle of something, and yet that comes with this job. I was thinking back when I was preparing for this meeting. There's been some times that I sat in on things when things were quite diverse. I remember the first meeting I had to sit in on, like Carly. We had a major decision to make, and that was how many cows we were going to let a farmer put on his pasture. I mean, we almost split the county. We almost split the county over that discussion. I just looked at the point of the fun about it. There was a time when we had I want to call it a knockdown, drag out, talking about who would run the golf course. That was not a friendly time. There was a knockdown, drag out fight over the alcohol ordinance. There's a lot of things that we as a commission had to deal with over the years, and I've been there and fought through those. The good news is we survived and survived well up till now, and that's going to continue, I think. So I'm not concerned, I'm not worried about that. I will state several things that I think, I don't want to repeat everything that was said, but there are some things we can do, and things that I think would help this county and the citizens of this county if we put our mind to it and figure out the right way to get it done. I know there's two views here. Can we do it without terminating the notice? Can we do it without going through an audit and raising those questions? Can we do it? How do we do it? And those things. So let me just start. I was here when the county had a board of economic development prior to any involvement of the chamber directly, officially with the county. And I have to say, in my opinion, in my judgment, not only did that board not get the job done, they did damage that took a long time for the chamber to recover from. That was just not a workable solution to let government try to do tourism and development, marketing of that. That's not what government ought to do. So that being said, I have no intent nor no desire to see tourism, marketing development, and increase of tourism dollars to this county being managed and operated and run directly by an outside organization. In fact, there's a lot of places I wish we had more outside organizations providing support and help to the county, to not let government do some things that they don't know how to do. I'm speaking for what I don't know how to do. So that's where I'm coming from. I think from a legal standpoint, it is a simple thing to say we're going to give notice of possible termination so that we have a legal opportunity to discuss and talk openly about any improvements to our contract with the chamber. It has worked well for a lot of years. It can be improved. That's all I want to say. It can be improved. How we have to do that is probably the big, tough question. How do we deal with making changes that maybe come about because of our joint comprehensive plan that has a lot of things in there relative to tourism, relative to development of tourism, agritourism, etc. We need to keep those things in sync with what our contract deals with to implement those joint development plans. Typically, those plans have not had any weight and no bearing on what we do. But I think it's important that we're all on the same page, not just the chamber, but everybody, all the stakeholders involved in those kinds of things. So we need to have changes that needs to be done. We are having changes this year because we've got a new welcome center on track to come open in a few months. That's a big change. That's nice, encouraging change. There's just dissension. Not everybody agrees with that. So we're going to have dissension, and I can't avoid that, and I don't need to. I'm going to make several proposals and just throw them out. They're not. They're just my thoughts and my opinions. If there's a way we can accomplish changes for the best, changes for improving our, increasing our tourism dollars without having to tear up a contract and start from scratch, then let's find a way to do that. That's fine with me. I really wish the contract was more of a fluid document than it is. Unfortunately, we do them on a yearly basis, and that's the way it works. It is something that we need to look at, and I think the Chamber's willing and has already expressed interest in being able to work together to see what can be worked on, what needs to be added to that, what needs to be changed if there's change. So I'm open to doing that if we can find a way to do that without terminating the contract per se, but using all the negatives of that. That's too negative to go that route. But in terms of the discussions and the words that have been spoken about the use of funds and any allegations that have gone along with that, I think that's been totally overblown. We need to address that one way or another. My suggestion is that we simply use the audit that you all and the chamber already have every year, that we go from that and work with that, that you provide that to us. I don't think it's required in the contract, but it certainly would be an answer to the question. If there is anything that needs to be followed up, then I think the answer will be what I think the term, and you guys are CPAs, a forensic audit of a particular part of the chamber's business, if that were the case, if something surfaced as a relevant thing. And to my knowledge, anything I have heard, anything that I have seen indicates to me that there is no concern, there should be no concern, there cannot be any thing that has been done inappropriately relative to the funds, if there happened to be $1,000 or $500 here or there, or if there's something happened accounting-wise that was not done right, then the CPAs know how to fix that. They know how to adjust those things. If it means that the chamber moves some money, that's fine. Y'all can solve that problem if there is any evidence and proven evidence that something happened accidentally or intentionally. And I see none of that really. I don't worry about that. We could go through our own books and Sandy does an incredibly accurate and great job, but if we wanted to, we could find a missed transaction posted wrong. I love doing that, actually. I'm a numbers person, but it's not something we deal with. We don't have to make headlines on that. That's not what it is. Secondly, I think there's been questions of who would perform the audit, who pays for it, when do you do it. I'm willing to accept the audit from the chamber that's already been done on an every year basis and use that to work from. We don't need to deal with another audit in my sense right now, unless somebody has better evidence to me that justifies it. I don't see that. There's one other aspect that I would like to talk about, and we haven't really discussed this, but it involves the appointment of a board member from our commission to your board, to the chamber's board. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is a totally ex officio, non-voting, non-controlling, non-whatever. I think that's the purpose for that and the intent of that, and does not create a conflict of interest, which was truly one of my concerns. I do not believe someone that is part of the county government or appointed by the county government that is associated with the county government and also have some authority or interest in an outside organization. That would be a big conflict of interest. I don't think I would ever want to have a board member appointed by us that would have any authority to vote or to work as a board, a true board member. I think that's an immediate conflict of interest because you cannot serve both sides when it comes to a discussion. So I don't know what our plan is tomorrow to vote on that, but I just want to make sure that that is strictly a non-voting, non-active, whatever the right words are, so that there is no conflict of interest. That's an issue we don't need to create as well. So that's another issue we're dealing with. You as a chamber are a contractor for us. We have, as a board, chosen to outsource that function of tourism development and marketing of tourism for our county. That is what we've decided. I will not support anything that changes that. I think that's a good fit. I will support anything that improves that marketing effort, that improves our county revenue from tourism. That's not a conflict. That just says we're going to contract something that we're paying taxpayers money for to someone who has given promise to do what we ask them to do, and that's a normal thing, and that's a good thing. So changing that contract to me is not an issue. We need to improve it, and we can have those discussions. So that I think is a key item I would like to propose and say that we do not terminate it as per se, but we have to have a way that we officially can discuss and work through the plans, the schedule, financing of what we've contracted the chamber to do. I think that's fair. It's a two-way street. And you all have a lot of different additional things that you all do and fund and manage and operate than just our piece of this. We don't have your whole budget. And that's another thing, a conflict. I would not want someone on the county government side to be influencing what you do on an independent outside functions that the chamber does well. So there is a question, so I'm going to finish and wrap up, but I would like to, between now and tomorrow, find a way to plan on having these discussions between the two boards, between the two organizations, without terminating the contract. I don't want that to become the object of the stumbling block of what we're trying to do and what we've been doing for a lot of years. I don't want the audit situation to become a stumbling block for the progress we've made. I don't want that to happen. We don't need that to happen. So that's kind of the summary of where I'm at, and I didn't prepare this speech or write it down, so I don't think I'll be like the preacher that doesn't quit till 2 o'clock.
I'm going to refer before, excuse me, ask your just patience 1 second. I want to, the only reason the word terminate came up is because our attorney said that was the only way to change the contract, to renegotiate the contract, to give us a chance to look at it. The only reason. I do not question whatsoever the way the chamber spends money. However, the next thing that comes up, that I'm sitting next to David, and he sees the report that Paige gave to you guys. I'm coming from a new commissioner, and I hear David say that this is not an audit. They haven't been doing an audit, so I'm going to be, open here because I'm just going to do it. And I said, what do you mean audit? He said, well, it's statute, it's state law that whoever we outsource, we entrust that tax money to, that they do an audit of those tax dollars. Now, I have just sworn an oath to 30,000 people that I'm going to ensure and watch over every dollar that is spent, and I do not want to be ultimately responsible. I don't doubt that if their audit's going to be done and it's going to be totally great. But if there's a state law that says this should be done, and David, I would love for you to explain that because you sent me lots of paperwork and we've had discussions and I've talked to DCA and ACCG about this, and it's a statute out there that is not being done right now.
Caroline, if the audit that is being done does not meet the state requirements, then that's totally a different legal issue that needs to be resolved.
I believe that's the case.
I don't necessarily believe it's the case, but that's a legal question that I can't answer.
Okay, before David answers that, Andy, I think you wanted to comment.
I just want to say, I don't speak at public meetings because I have a forum as the publisher of the paper where I can speak. So this is completely odd for me, but like Harleen, I'm an incoming board member on the chamber, so this is my first year coming in. I can be a little bit more blunt than you can in that in 2007, I was part of a county where this happened, where they decided to monkey with the funding of a chamber that was beginning to respond during the recession. A lot of things were going right. A lot of things were moving forward. There was a partnership between the EDC and the chamber. They were getting prepared to handle what was coming, and we were starting to see the things that were happening at that point. This is 10, 11 years on from that. If you go to that county now, you can't find more than 2 restaurants open. You can't find a hotel to stay in. It has become a wasteland. And this is somewhere that I worked and that I enjoyed. But when you say that has a lasting effect, and it doesn't happen in the first or second year or even the third or fourth year, but down the road, it has caused that county major trauma. They can't keep an EDC director. Nobody will come and work for them. Their chamber director doesn't have a whole lot to work with. And the county now has nothing to work with because they don't have the income tourist dollars. The county next door, where the hotel still is and where the restaurants still are, they're doing great. The county where we were suffered. So I have an actual experience with something like this happening, and I've seen what it's done. So I would encourage you, Carlene, if it was me, to not make that motion. Take a year and understand what's going on and what the effects of your actions would be before making that motion. And as an incoming member, I can say if we haven't been doing an audit, then I've heard that we've had a letter from our auditors when we did it, or your auditors, and I've come to quite a few meetings and I keep up with what's going on. I haven't seen either auditor say that that was a problem at this point. Has somebody said that that was a problem? So if that needs to be done though, as a board member, as an incoming board member, I can tell you, you have my vote, and we'll be right on that, and that will be done from now on. I can also tell you that if we need to negotiate, I think that there's a lot of negotiating that can be done over the year without this action, and that I'm willing to be open to it and to talk about the things. But I think what we're doing right now is we're pushing a nuclear option button when there's no reason to. And you don't like the word terminate, but the agreement is being terminated, and it is being renegotiated, and that money will be taken from the chamber, and those things will cause problems down the road. So I think that's something, I would just encourage you to give it a year on the board and understand what's going on. I know looking from the outside, but inside I think it's going to be a lot different in your first year. So I would just encourage you to take that time, and then if next January or next December or next November or October you decide that that's something that you want to do, then I think that's your right as a commissioner. But I think that doing that at this point, at this first meeting, is maybe something that we even want to look at a little harder and a little longer, that I think time may heal some of these things, and you will be able to talk about them and negotiate. That's my feeling.
Trent, you had something you want to say?
Just a couple of things, and I do appreciate the comments that Post Commissioner Dallas shared with us. For those that don't know me, I'm Trent Sanford, and I'm soon to be the past chairman of the board of the Chamber of Commerce. I've only been back in Gilmer County for about 6 years, and I'm working at a car dealership. Before that, I still use my CPA license. I am one of those folks that have those letters behind my name. I've been a CPA for 30 years. My prior life before working in a car dealership, I was a banker, and I dealt with people's money on a regular basis from a fiduciary standpoint. I have served on over 12 nonprofit, not-for-profit, and foundation boards in my lifetime. Some that affect only Gilmer County, some that are statewide, and one that, well actually two, that serve the entire United States. My titles in banking were not, with all due respect to the jobs that everybody does. Working is a good thing, work. But my titles were not lower echelon. I was a chief financial officer, I was a president, I was a chief executive officer. Those were my titles. I have a little bit of knowledge when it comes to accounting. As far as audits, I had discussions with the prior Post 2 commissioner in December when all this stuff started escalating through the budget process. I reached out to him and asked him to meet with me. And he threw several things out on the table he wanted to discuss after I pulled it out of him. He didn't volunteer hardly anything. One of the things that he talked about was that he had concerns over some dollars that had been spent. And he's brought that up in these meetings. And when I nailed him down, out of a budget of the chamber that's over $500,000, counting hotel, motel tax, and all our other sources, it wasn't 10%. It wasn't 1%. It was barely 1/10 of 1% that the Post 2 commissioner had a concern about. And he had been provided, just as Mr. Parrish and Mr. Miller had, more detail than he said he even wanted. He said he would have been fine if he'd have gotten a report from the Chamber of Commerce that said, of the $400,000 that was received, we spent X dollars on facilities. We spent X dollars on salaries. We spent X dollars on media that was related to social media. We spent X dollars on print materials. We spent X dollars giving to other organizations in our community that support tourism. That's all he said he really wanted, but we gave him, and you guys, dates the check was written, the check number, who it was written to, the dollar amount, all this information. He had everything for an entire year, the year that I'm the president and I've been signing a lot of checks. Less than $500 in question. So I don't think, and if you've sat in these meetings and you've heard those phrases, I took it upon myself to meet with the post commissioner that was bringing that up. And when he left my office, he said he was satisfied. Now, as far as an audit, the chamber does have an audit. The post 2 commissioner, prior post 2 commissioner, said as the chamber president or chairman of the board at one point, and in that position, the position I'm about to leave, I have monthly meetings with my executive committee where we go over the financial statements. I have monthly meetings with the entire board where we go over those statements. I meet with the budget committee, I meet with the audit committee, I meet with our auditors who do an audit. You know, they come to our board meeting and go over their audit findings. I have seen those presentations on numerous occasions, and at no point has anything been brought up that they were concerned about. No findings. Now, for those of you that aren't CPAs, when you get an audit report, you'll either have a qualified opinion or an unqualified opinion or whatever. Well, unqualified means we have no problems in saying everything's good. That's what we've been getting. Now, has hotel motel tax been specifically audited? It has not. The statute requires the county to ensure it has been audited. True. Not the custodian. But you can put that burden on us. And I talked to the chairman about that, or to the post 2 commissioner, and said, I think it's a great idea because there's nothing to hide. It protects the county. It protects the chamber. It needs to be added to the audit. And it would be done upon the process of agreed upon procedures as an addendum to the audit that we've already been having. We actually have one scheduled. It's such a great idea. We've already discussed it in one schedule in February to go over the 2018 forensic type audit on agreed upon procedures to look specifically at that. So I don't know if that kind of sounds like that nullifies one of the items that's on your agenda. Lots of things can be solved by 2 individuals sitting down and talking. Now, I know we can't sit down and talk with all 3 of you. We can't even talk with 2 of you. But I do think back to when I first came on the board of directors of the chamber, of the then post 2 commissioner, advocating on behalf of the chamber to put in this clause of 360 days, because having been on the chamber board, he understood that we had personnel issues that had to be decided for more than 12 months at a time. We had contracts. Once you get out of line with some of these tourism riders that come into town, you may not get back into line with them to come and visit your town and go to your vineyards or raft the Carticay or whatever for a number of years. Likewise, when you've got contracts with specialists that have been marketed and stuff, when you get out of line, you're not going to get back into line for a while. He understood that, and that's why the prior post 2 commissioner put that wording in. 3 years ago, you didn't terminate the contract to change the contract, folks. Go back and check your minutes. The contract was not terminated. You amended it, which is what the chairman has recommended. I don't see why you can't amend it now if you didn't have to terminate it 3 years ago with the same, well, 2 of the same commissioners, your same accountants, your same legal counsel. Amend it. We have no objections to going through a process just like we did 3 years ago with our president working with one of your commissioners to come up with something that's appropriate, bring it back to both boards, agreeing upon it, having attorneys write it up, and then vote on it at both boards. That's an amendment. That's not a termination, folks. An amendment does not sound as bad in the media. Probably wouldn't even be picked up by a writer. It wasn't last time. I didn't see anything talked about in the paper 3 years ago. Let's think about the ramifications before we just go off doing stuff that may affect this community forever. I represent a business that does not work in hospitality. We don't rent rooms and we don't sell food or wine or whatever. So you might wonder why I would advocate for tourism and what the chamber's doing. I've been on the board of I've been a member of 5 chambers. And if you've been to the chamber meetings, even at the annual meeting last year, I stood up and said this was the best chamber I've been involved in. I was involved in a little chamber over in Walker County. They don't have hotels and there's not cabins. They don't have dollars to operate on, folks. They can't promote their county. This is the best place to keep those tourism dollars. You know, when Benny or Cheryl sells a pillowcase or a backpack or a cap or whatever in their business, I don't benefit directly. But they do. Y'all get the sales tax to work on, and then they can afford to come and buy a vehicle for my business.
And that keeps our people employed.
She gets to do the tax returns. I mean, this is lasting forever, but it's very important. We're talking about things that's going to affect us forever. We all work together. We are a community. And what happens at Chateau Maitri or ETC or H&R Block affects me. And I appreciate what you're doing. It takes a whole lot to run for public office. But consider everything before you make a motion to terminate or before you second a motion. Because there's lots of citizens, there's a lot of people in this room. But it all comes down to you two and how you decide to do it. You are the elected officials, not your advisors. It comes down to you two.
Okay, we're gonna have one more comment. We've got to bring this to a close. Steve, I know you want to say something, and then we'll let David address his thing, and we're going to...
Thank you very much for that. This is my second go around in the Chamber of Commerce. The first time was a very dark days for the Chamber. We had leadership changes. I kind of feel like a little bit is my fault because during that time I advocated for Gilmer County that we needed to get some of that hotel motel tax to be able to support the Chamber, to be able to do that, to be able to bring in good leadership. And as my grandma used to say, there's 2 sides to every pancake. I think we have a great investment in the Chamber of Commerce. I think there should be a consideration of moving that 70 on up to 80 or 85. I mean, we all agree that it's working. If we agree that something's working, if I got an investment that's working, I want to put more money behind that investment. Now, do I want to audit? We're not scared of an audit. That'll be quick and easy. That's not a big deal. I don't think anybody really here is that really worried about what the audit's going to turn out. That being said, I think we have a great thing going. I closed my business during the Apple Festival.
Not anymore.
Sure. Well, not anymore. So, but that being said, I'm like, I'm not advocating for the Chamber. I'm advocating for Gilmer County. I've been here 20 years, owned business for 20 years. Let's do the right thing. Like I said, I say you invest more in them.
Thanks, Steve. David, I think everybody's on board with the idea. I know the question is whether or not the state requires audit. I think everybody's on board with the idea of the audit. So, assuming that we're going to have the audit, is there anything else legally that you need to address in terms of Carly's question?
We'll have to roll back to Carly's question.
Whether or not the state actually requires an audit in our getting it.
The contract that was entered into with the Chamber requires under paragraph 4, subparagraph 4, to comply with all applicable local, state, and federal law. Right. The statute that is referenced and would be the controlling statute is Title 48, 13, and 51. And it in there, in fact, says a county expending funds, which is what y'all are doing, to meet the expenditure requirements of paragraph, and y'all are collecting the hotel motel tax under subparagraph 3, shall require the contracting party to provide audit verification that the contracting party makes use of such funds in conformity with the requirements of this subsection. Now, when this was brought up, initially, there had not been an audit performed, and it should have been being performed. I was unaware of that failure to have that, and that was my strong advice. I will continue to make that my strong advice today. I know Trent referenced 0.1%. I've seen elected officials get in more trouble over small de minimis amounts of inappropriate expenditures, and unfortunately, be threatened with their liberty. So my suggestion is going to continue to remain a strong suggestion. Now, I'm unfamiliar with who the auditor is that they have proposed, but my suggestion to y'all is that you use an experienced governmental auditor. They're different.
Unless I'm confused, the auditor is the same one the regional commission uses.
It is.
It is.
So
It
maybe
is.
we need to go over there at the next meeting and have some suggestions for them.
We have spoken, I apologize. I was not-
So if tomorrow night I make a motion that we modify this agreement to require an audit that meets those requirements.
You don't even have to make that requirement because it's in there, so they got to impose that requirement.
And y'all are good on, I mean, I'm fine with imposing it, so.
We've already said it in
And
motion.
I think y'all are fine on
We have
having
spoken
it.
to our auditors. They performed this audit for other taxing agents.
And there is the thing that I was going to suggest to y'all. Y'all employ Chris Holyfield to perform your audit. And they do this routinely. I've spoken with his firm and they routinely perform this audit. It would be, in my opinion, as the attorney, that you use or require them to use the same auditor as the county is using, so that you got complete coverage. That there's not independent finger pointing, one pointing differently with the other.
But the state law does not require us to appoint or dictate the auditor.
It does,
Other than the,
but you modify your contract and you can require them to use the same auditor as the county. And they routinely do this. Chris's firm routinely does this.
Well, I think,
And so does the one that's doing it now, David. They routinely do it.
And again,
This splitting hairs, we don't care who does the audit.
I think that would be the case.
yeah,
I think that if we boil this down to the audit, I think we're all good. Because we can
Stop the legal
impose
fees,
the
let's just do
audit.
it.
We can, if necessary, impose it against the same people we do it. And if that ends all of this, then, I think we're all gonna walk out here good. Any objections from that side?
Mr. Chairman, I know you want to close it, but I heard earlier forensic audit, is that what required, forensic audit? I heard that in the
Forensic
conversation.
is not what is required.
But,
and
right,
The
so-
cost of a forensic audit is.
Right, so they're not going to do it I just heard
I
the
would
word
not
forensic
recommend
audit
doing a
earlier.
forensic audit, no.
Okay, good, I just wanted to double
The
check.
cost is just too tremendous.
No, that's what I was going to say, I heard the
with
word.
no,
Agreed upon procedures.
Okay.
Okay, I think that, we'll be able to move pretty quickly through the rest of this. We're gonna pretty much have to, I think, assuming that I can even find what I did with my agenda.
What is the county attorney's opinion on amending like we did 3 years ago, if there is some reason to do any changes rather than
The problem there, Trent, is that 3 years ago when the amendment was being considered, is that the renewal period was further out in the calendar year. I believe, if I'm not 100% certain, it may have been 6 months renewal. Is that right? Which the discussion to amend began occurring in the first quarter of 2015. In fact, I think it was a February agenda
I got
item.
that somewhere.
It was early on in that calendar year. But the thing with this contract is it's pushed that renewal period all the way up to January 16th. So let's say y'all endeavor to, or the chamber would endeavor to enter into an amendment. If that amendment were not approved before January 16th, then this contract locks in for a calendar year of 2020, which would be the fiscal year for both entities.
unless both sides agree?
Well, yes, that's true, but again, the problem is an oral agreement to modify a written agreement isn't going to be acceptable. It would not modify the controlling terms of
The
the
current
contract.
agreement's in right. Why wouldn't you
But
have a
we-
written agreement?
We have provisions in the current agreement, though, that stipulate that we can require the audit. And I think we're down to the fact that the audit is what's the crux of the issue here. And y'all have no objection to doing it, so I would
Is
propose-
Carleen prepared to remove that other item from the agenda? Because that's
Well,
on the agenda.
I think the real question is, Dallas has indicated that he doesn't care about, voting to, terminate it.
So it would die for
So
lack
I
of
would
a
hope it
second.
would be removed. but if
I
not-
was always under the impression the only way to renegotiate this contract was to terminate it. That was what I was.
If my doctor told me tomorrow I had cancer, I'd get a second opinion.
But
Well,
what?
you know what, I'm elected at this position,
Yeah.
and everyone from DCA and ACCG has told me to always seek legal counsel.
And
So
I get
here
a
I
second
come.
opinion if it's something that was
Okay.
gonna blow the whole community up.
But here's the thing. We're down to the audit. I mean, and we have the provision in there to require the audit, we just have to impose it. It is imposed.
So noted.
And if we don't get the audit, then there'll be consequences to that, but, you know, I think we're good.
So am I under the impression that agreement has room to be renegotiated if, for say, something comes along without terminating it? I guess that's the way you guys did it before, to renegotiate, or is it, because it keeps repeating, so I don't understand how to do it.
It's my understanding that we can renegotiate it anytime during the year, and it will be effective essentially with the next contract year.
Is that correct?
Which would be 2021.
That's what,
Right.
2021.
So, well,
Officially, legally,
Absolutely.
that's when the
The
contract
only other
would
way
be renewed.
to get around it is if both parties are willing to agree to the.
Exactly.
I think both
Right,
parties
real estate
are willing
contract.
in writing to agree to a renegotiation. But I don't see that it's necessary because the issue is the audit.
The issue is not only the audit, so initially, so, but I'm, you know, it,
Okay, well, my motion on that will be to remove that from the agenda. If I'm voted down, we will have a vote on the thing.
Mr. Parrish, I know you want to close this with this young lady right here.
I want to close it quick.
I just have one simple question.
Yeah.
So he said the audit wasn't really an issue, right?
Wasn't the only
it was
issue.
One of the issues. So what is the other issue?
You know
'Cause
what?
it is killing
I'm
me.
not gonna talk about it right now. Okay, so we'll discuss it when media is not around.
That will never happen.
Well, how will we resolve, how will we resolve it?
Yeah, right.
We was going there long 4 years.
Charlie, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, how do we resolve it if it's not on the table?
If it's not on the table.
If it's not brought up and discussed and it's an issue that's going to stop the contract from continually being renewed, how do we resolve that problem?
How we fix it?
You know what, I'm hopeful that I will be able to be the liaison and still sit on the board with all of you that I admire and respect tremendously and be able to work through the next year.
And this is a conversation that can go on in these board meetings, you know, between y'all and get whatever resolved, or if it determines that it can't be resolved, then it can come back here, but, I don't think there's anything that can't be resolved, you know, with people sitting down and talking. But right now, I got about 15 more items to get through, and it's 12 o'clock. So, the other one is pretty quick, though. The next item on the agenda is whether or not to acquire an audit, so I'm gonna assume that that's been handled. And we are gonna move on. The next item on the agenda is appointment of a member to the Chamber of Commerce Board. And I will make the motion for that be Carter. And Dallas, if we need to specify non-voting, we can do that in motion.
No, I think as long as that's clear, and I don't know when that started or where that got implemented, but just as long as we're clear that it is a non-voting.
Mr. Harris, can I just,
Yes.
to answer your question, It is actually not anything to do with our contracted services with you all. It is we have ex officio members as stated in our bylaws, which we can amend at any time. The county, the two cities, joint development authority, it is our partners that come to our meetings. And I think it's been always been in effect for a number of years. But it is a suggestion of our bylaws.
And all I was to make clear was, I didn't want that to create a conflict of
Yes,
interest.
sir,
And
absolutely.
I'm good with that.
Well, elected officials are not permitted to serve on the board according to our bylaws.
Correct. Our bylaws do not allow for elected officials to serve on our board as a
As
voting
a
member.
It's a voting.
As a
voting
voting member.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you. We're good.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Okay, the next item, discussion of meeting dates to discuss the 2020 budget. We've got a year on this, and we are seriously overrun today. I'm going to suggest we take
There's nothing urgent here.
appointment of a member to the Joint Development Authority. I have discussed this with them and agreed that I would be okay serving in that capacity if they also choose.
How long is that one? Does that run during the term of year?
It's my understanding it's during the term.
Is there a term on that for the chamber, going back to that, is that?
That's the JD. Oh, you're talking about the JD?
No, I want to go back to the chamber. Is there a term on that?
On the
How long,
ex
how many
officio?
years?
Yeah.
Or do we
Is
reappoint
it
every year?
during the length of the term, or does it have to be
Do we,
reappointed?
how does that work?
There are seats on the chamber board for specific ex officio members. You have the ability to appoint somebody, and you can change them at any point you want to. So if Carlene, gets busy doing something else, and she don't have time to do it, she can let you guys know, and you can say, okay, we want to appoint Dallas.
But we don't have to reappoint her every year.
You don't have to report her every year, and that's probably why Dallas hadn't seen it come up, because Travis was that person for 4 years.
So you serve at our, like,
Yeah.
legal, is that the way we word it?
It would be my
Okay.
Okay.
Resolution to appoint a county clerk for 2019. I would suggest we advertise for, or we could just reappoint everybody.
As long as you,
Resolution to appoint a county attorney. My recommendation would be David. Okay, did y'all hear that last one?
Yes.
Resolution to approve the organizational chart for 2019. You've got a copy of it. The only change on there is substituting Carlene for Travis.
I had one question on that. Let me find it real quick. It was a minor. Let me just see what my note was. I thought we had everybody on here. Typically, I thought we also included county attorney along with the county clerk.
We
It
can't.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I can put that in there. What we can do is tomorrow night we can approve it contingent on we putting the county attorney in there.
It's up to you. That was the only thing
I don't
I saw
care.
that was, I think in the past it's been there one sometimes, but anyway.
The thing is, the
I mean,
county attorney is not actually
Yeah,
a county employee.
yeah, we kind of,
Normally, the org chart.
Well,
is
that's
county
fine. I just wanted to raise that question. If that's better, then fine.
I don't know that I've ever seen it. I don't know, you sure?
Well, I would go back. I slept since I thought about it, so I'm not sure. But that's fine. We don't.
Okay.
What do we, I hate to ask this, I should know, but what do we have regulations on there with you, Jim?
Oh, that's because Jim is my bureaucrat. If I get a letter from the state saying, you shall do this by this date and then this way and blah, 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 I just, hey, Jim.
Well, let's put the double bar around.
Double whammy?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I'm done. Let's move on.
Everybody needs a bureaucrat. I'm serious.
Only good news.
Yes. Okay, this thing, discussion and possible action of changing the name of Hills Lake Road back to Ridge Road. I got a call from 911, they had a new person that had built a house and wound up getting a Hills Lake Road address, and it turns out that everybody else on that street still has their Ridge Road address. I told them I'd put that on the agenda, but we have since found petitions by the folks when we did change it, wanting to change it back. Personally, I think we're probably making a mistake and make a lot of people unhappy if we change it again. What we're gonna have to do is just go back to these people and say, look, change your address. It's Hills Lake Road.
Well, I agree with you, Charlie, but let me ask, our letter and our notification says we notified every property owner. We did that with notifying by certified and regular mail.
They just didn't do it.
But there are things like an example in here. Do we know that the tax assessor has changed their addresses in their system? And do we know that the tax commissioner has changed it?
Only
do we
that.
know how, other than that, I don't care about the post office, that's not our business, but I do care about our tax
We only know
assessor,
that
tax commissioner.
because when 911 calls in, they specified that according to the tax assessor's office, everybody else on there had a Ridge Road address. So their recommendation was it would be easier just to change it back and to Ridge Road and not have all these people have to change their address. But
Are we required to get approval from 3/4 of the letters sent out before it's approved, or not?
I didn't think we were required to,
I
but
thought
they're a pretty good idea.
That petition
Should
pretty
change
much
the rules.
was.
And that was
Change
not
their
about
address.
100%.
It was, I think there was one property owner that felt was joined in on the petition. That road name has been a hot issue.
You're not going to please everybody
No.
up there, I know. Because I know 3-4 times it's gone back and forth, and they're still.
I don't want
The
to.
only reason that this made the agenda was because the 911 folks felt that, correctly so, that they've got to get everybody on the same page. And that it would be easier to have this one person change their address than to have everybody else. Now, the irony here is that probably the people that would most object to changing it back are the people that are going to have to change their address. I didn't know the full history of it then. And
It goes back 20 years.
I've since looked at these petitions, and personally, I ain't touching it.
No, I agree.
So they're just gonna have to change their address.
And if there was something missing that wasn't notified, I would say we correct that. I don't even see that.
Well, we'll send them another notification.
If you wish, that's fine.
Is there signage at the intersection?
You cannot keep a road sign there because everybody don't agree with it.
Right, they're still, you take them down.
I put 4 or 5 signs up a few years ago. They'll stay up 2 weeks and they're there. People don't like.
And it's a gated community. It's not a county maintained road. It's a private community. But
Community with a flood down back.
yeah, there's a flood. That's the caveat that I was about to put in there. There's a flood control dam
Moving right along.
behind that gate.
Next item, in 2017 and 2018, the commission did a resolution authorizing me to dispose of unused county property for that year. And we've disposed of quite a bit of property. That was, I'm getting mostly junk, but certainly unused. So I will request a similar resolution for 19, if that works for y'all. Otherwise, and I think we started doing this again with this. Otherwise, I've got to put it on the agenda and come back to y'all every little piece of unused equipment that we need to get rid of. Okay, I'm gonna ask a general question. Has everybody reviewed the, well, let me wait about that. LJ, River Outfitters license. Anybody got any objections on that one?
No.
They've met the requirements. The franchise fee, number 9. Discussion of possible action on a resolution of the Secretary of State to establish a franchise fee. This is not anything we're going to impose on anybody additionally. It's apparently anybody who does utilize a franchise fee, which we do with cable, TV, needs to have this resolution on file with the state. So what we need to do is approve this resolution, send it to the state. No other action will be taken on that.
And we do have that with the ETC,
Yes.
and there could be, as far as I remember, that was a non-exclusive franchise. So there could potentially be.
If there could be others in the event that, so we just know the appropriate event that we're coming with that. But even just having it for that one, we have to have this resolution on file with the state.
Now, this resolution only applies to the unincorporated area.
That is correct.
May I ask, what, does the city have to do the same thing?
Well, technically, and I don't, it says in here that although not required, and that's the way it's been approached, each governing local governing party should take. So it's not it's not a state requirement, it's just a strong recommendation. And so as to whether the city has or has not, I mean, that would be under their jurisdiction and would be their election to do it. I think when I looked online yesterday that the city had not, those big ones had not, I don't think East Ellicott had not, but it does say in here should take action, and anytime the state tells you should,
You better.
you should.
They can have a certain committee. Why does it, another question real quick, I'll move on. It talks about cable service providers, and then it says video service providers. What does that mean? TV stations?
Honestly, I don't know if that was.
I don't know that we've got any, but I don't know what it would.
I don't have, maybe it's internet, but I don't know what that means. That's just my question.
When do they pay the fee? Because I wondered if it would affect cell tower companies, because I've got like 3 possibly.
No, it doesn't.
I wouldn't think it would affect the sales.
It's specific to cable and video, what I say, video, whatever. Video service, whatever they are. Okay.
Okay. Now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rezonings. Has everybody had a chance to look at those rezonings?
Yeah.
Do we really need to discuss them individually here, or can we just say?
I don't think I've got any concerns.
I'm good on all of them.
I didn't see anything. Karen didn't bring anything up with the board meeting.
Adopting the first reading of chapter title and ordinance of human. Do we have a public comment? We'll have public comment session at 5 and then we'll vote on this.
David, do you want to make any comments about what this latest version has? Because I have not read this latest one.
Well, they picked up those word corrections, word smithing that you do.
Yes, I do.
And for some reason, it went ahead version 1, and there was a version 2. That was, and so I made some of the changes that you made, and because the 2 acres had been changed in version 2, and for some reason I don't know how. So all that happened over the holidays, but that is the latest version. There's nothing that's changed. It incorporates everything that y'all had considered with respect to that multi-family low density, which was the duplex district, and it's 2 acres, okay? And then I changed some of that R4, R3.
I thought I read that the new R3 duplexes would be 4 acres.
Now you have version 1.
Yeah, that's where I read it. It was probably 2.
So the big change between 1 and 2 is
1 and 4.
I mean 1 and 4.
1 and 4.
But the big change is
There was a version 2.
Which one got published, advertised? Which version?
Possibly version 1.
Version 1 is sitting, it didn't get published,
It
but
just gets
version 1 is
available.
sitting out there if somebody wants to look at it.
Okay.
But I can put this version.
Very quickly, the only question I have is on the list or chart of approved or conditional uses. We have some changes there that I think we missed, and I want to make sure that it's right under R3 and R4, David, on the new plan.
Okay.
Let me find which one it was. You and I had discussed it, and I did. The question about the one on the swimming pools, country club facilities,
It
golf
seems to
courses,
be a
and all that.
repetitive definition, I think, of what you're concerned with.
Well, and they were in conflict. There was a definition for community centers and another one for residential community.
Well,
They
was
were-
the difference gated and not gated?
It doesn't state that.
Anything to
It
do?
doesn't state that, but one was conditional and one was permitted. That's the only technical difference that I saw.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I thought if it was within a subdivision and that might be where it's permitted to come in, and then
It
it's
may mean
outside
that, but
you
it
need
doesn't say
conditional
that.
use, yeah.
I don't remember
It's under,
inclusion in subdivision.
I see the country club, what was the other?
the next page.
Parks, yes, it's parks.
I would suggest those both should be conditional. When you're starting to put a community, what I consider is a community swimming pool or golf course.
But what about when it's a subdivision and they're common development, and that's what they're gonna do with that common development? They have to go back through the board for conditional use approval to use it that way?
Y'all want to regulate that?
No, my only concern is how do we deal with the infrastructure impact? If we've got a development that puts all of that in there, the parking, the drainage, and all of the infrastructure impact, maybe even road and traffic. I don't know, I'm just asking. I really don't
That
know.
would fall more under the auspices of the subdivision development and, the preliminary plat and final plat, and given the planning and zoning.
Just so we don't,
They have to have county water most likely if they're in the small lots anyway.
all I want to be sure is that we don't get impacted unexpectedly and surprised. That's all I don't, if it doesn't affect us, then fine, it's permitted.
Then under park/community centers, do you wish to change that from conditional to permitted? Because you're.
In R3,
What about in all the other districts?
well, it's conditional everywhere.
Yeah, do you want to change it to be consistent?
As long as we're consistent, I don't care.
Yeah.
Make it permitted,
Yes.
we're consistent, that's all. Be sure, then, whether it's a official subdivision, it doesn't matter.
Well, the only thing I can think of, Dallas, for infrastructure impact would be if it was not a gated subdivision, if they were, if it was open. But your gated subdivisions, the infrastructure impact there is going to be on them, not on the county.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not.
moving right on.
Have our meeting tonight.
Next item will be to approval of a alcoholic beverage license. These folks have met all the requirements, so any discussion we need to do today?
No, except I would suggest we dispose of our application since it's got private information on it. And you, I think, corrected the public record. So we're fine if we do this. But these do not need to be.
And that change has already been made. Discussion of executive session changes. We, a while back, started just automatically adding executive session onto the agenda because things come up at the last minute. Where we really need to have an executive session, but maybe it wasn't on the agenda, so there's a problem. So what we've done is we put it on every agenda, and for the reason, we just list all the reasons that would be legitimate there. It was pointed out, and I think very rightly so, that even though we do that if we do choose to go into executive session, we should specify which of those we're going into executive session for, rather than saying we're going into executive session for this or this or this. So, in my mind, what I would suggest is that we simply, when we make the motion, we would say, we make the motion to go into executive session for purposes of, let's say, personnel, with no action anticipated or whatever, but specify which of the generic reasons that we're actually going into the special, the executive session for.
But not put it in the agenda.
Well, we really can't, because we don't know what's going to come up.
Right, I agree with that.
We have to just broadcast the whole thing for that. But when we actually get ready to go, and a lot of times we don't even go into the executive session, but when something comes up and we're ready to go into executive session, then we simply specify, rather than just say we're going into executive session and here's all the reasons we can, that we specify what it is that we're going into the executive session for.
We always do specify whether we expect action or
Yeah.
not, don't we?
And we do, and no, and a lot of times, or most times, after the special, the executive session, whatever we're talking about, whenever that's done, you know, I may get an inquiry of what you go in for, and I say, well, personnel or real estate, whatever it was. What I'm suggesting is we just do that up front. We'll make a motion. We're going into executive session to discuss personnel or whatever.
I have no problem doing that, but I don't quite understand this a little bit.
It just, for one thing, keeps me from getting calls saying, what y'all go into special executive session for? Yes, sir.
Charlie,
It doesn't prevent us from dealing with something, even if we forgot to.
It does.
It does.
It does.
It does?
It specifies that we're going
I'm not
into.
sure that's a fair, I hear you. I'm not sure that's a fair
we usually
reason to do that. I
specify
don't know.
all three, all the
We
three.
specify all three now.
It was there in the bottom
It would limit us,
on
you're
the
right.
agenda for purposes of dot, 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 dot. You don't have to cover them, but they're there.
Well, I mean, we need to have an idea of what we're going into executive session for.
What you're doing now, am I correct, you're basically putting the paragraph from the state of what executive session you can and are able to talk about. That's basically what you're putting in now, is this is what the state says by the Constitution of the State of Georgia, that we can go in executive session, we can discuss real estate, we can discuss personnel, we can discuss X. And you're just putting that in for everyone, and you're not distinguishing what the item is.
That's correct.
And you feel you would I would love if you could distinguish the item, whether you drill it down to real estate or drill it down to personnel. That would be great, but I don't know that you're wrong. It's just a trust the citizens have to have in you not to discuss items that are not on executive session.
And I don't mean to imply that we're doing anything wrong.
I didn't think you did. No. And that's what I'm saying is I don't think you are.
Let me
But I don't have a problem if you drill it down.
If we expect action, I would like to do that. If we have no expected action coming out, then I'm not sure.
Why does action anticipated affect what we want?
Well, because that.
Technically, the action is what would lead for us to have the commitment,
Right.
if they wish to stay beyond the meeting itself.
I can see that, but if they want to know what we're discussing, what do we care?
I like that because, you know, when if the county's in a lawsuit with somebody, I apologize, Mr. Clark.
I said, I understand what you're saying, but if they want to know which of these that we're actually discussing, what do we care?
Yeah, I see that point.
If you speak of it in general terms, the only concern is who is speaking in executive session is supposed to be a communication that doesn't come out of the executive session. And,
unless it's voted on. Unless it's voted on.
That's true, that's
Yes,
true, and that's
why
the whole.
Exactly.
so,
Afterwards.
if y'all want to do it that way, you just need to remind yourself, and I'll be in there to remind you as well, is that you can't wander off into another topic, even if it jumps out and it should be discussed. Sometimes personnel decisions are interwoven with legal decisions.
Well, we might have to end up with 2 executive sessions if that happens.
Well, I don't
You ready
think,
for
I
that?
don't
No,
think,
I'm joking.
I don't
I'm
think
joking.
anybody's gonna be happy with
I'm
y'all
joking.
coming out and voting to go
Well,
back in.
let me just suggest this, why don't we do what we've been doing, going into executive session with these 3 criteria and do what we need to do. But when we come out, I will be happy to send to each of the outlets, here's the topic that we discussed.
And you can do it on the front end, but yes, you could do it on the back end.
If we do it on the back end, that
That
doesn't
takes,
limit us.
that takes the workload off you, Charlie, I understand.
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing that says that you guys can't go in there and discuss either one of those 3 major areas when you go in there.
Or one or
We're
more.
just mostly concerned about any decision that might come out.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if you go in there, you're covered by law to whatever you want to discuss under those 3 areas.
Unless we specify we're going in for one specific one.
I don't see there's anything in the law that says you have to stay with that one subject.
I think Mr. Clark can go in there and say, this week I received a letter concerning possible litigation we're involved in, and we don't have to know that because you have the right by the state to not discuss litigation in case, you know, there are negotiations that you don't want the other attorney, the other party, and that's what executive session is set up for. Am I correct? I think at any time you can advise them in an executive session if there's something of legal statute, because that's the only time you get 3 together.
And that's the purpose for including all 3.
I agree, and that's why I agree with Mr. Milliken over here. I agree with Mark 100% that I don't think you have to tell us,
No,
as long as you
don't.
hit that stamp that the state says you have to stay in there, because this is the only chance you have 3 commissioners to discuss anything.
And that's correct, and that's the reason, it'd be my suggestion not to limit it.
On behalf of the public, we're just asking for the courtesy of knowing what subject it is. If you go off on something else,
Yeah.
that's okay. But we
And
want
I'd
to
say on
primarily
behalf
what
of-
it is.
I'd say on behalf of us and also Mark here, it's a courtesy, because there's several counties I cover.
The
and
only
they-
problem I have with it is that's communication that is exempt from being covered, and if they come out and they, either on the front end or on the back end, if they come out and advise you as to what the topic of discussion was, that's somewhat defeating the whole purpose of the.
I think it's up to you, but I think as a courtesy, and all counties do not do that where we cover, and I appreciate you, is before you go in, let Mr. Clark say, I don't know, Brian, it's going to take about an hour and a half.
And that's what we've always done.
But it's a courtesy, you
Yes.
guys will always say, hey, we're going to be about this long and we don't expect, or we expect action. And if you say to us, we don't expect action, we wrap our stuff up and go home. And we respect that, but I don't even think you have to tell us that.
Because we trust you.
Right, exactly.
And we could,
And we appreciate that, but you don't even have to tell us that, right, Mark? Am I right?
we could give you a commitment that if something were to change in that meeting, we would immediately notify you that we do expect action to occur and give you the opportunity to
Right.
come back to the meeting. Or, if nothing else, to at least listen to that portion of the recording that one.
We've had action occur that we were not aware of you would do, but immediately the chairman gets it out, I mean, that night to the media outlets that action did occur. So for this county specifically, on a trust factor, you guys do an outstanding job. You really do going in there. But I don't know, like Mr. Milligan said, as far as the media, I'm speaking on behalf of media, you don't have to tell us as long as it meets that perimeter when you go in there. And we don't have to know if Mr. Clark got a letter this week concerning something. That's the only chance he has to get all 3 of you. So that's not venturing off course. He could bring up anything legal in
Charlie,
there.
what I would suggest is that we judiciously review this executive sessions a little better. We don't need to do, it's not an immediate things allowed. We can put 2 things off.
We'll have to have one this afternoon, guys.
Okay, we're gonna then, we'll continue as we are, and I will happily share with anybody that wants to know what the topic, primary topic was.
I didn't know that was coming.
Okay. All right, we need to appoint 5 members to the steering committee for this renewal of the joint comprehensive plan. The county was going to appoint 5, each of the 2 cities will be appointing 2. They've each appointed their 2. I have 5 candidates here that have agreed, and I think it's a really good list that I want to propose to y'all. For our 5, I would like to propose Carleen Ferguson, Mark Holden, Rick Tanner, John Marshall, and DeVille Frady. And what I tried to do there was sort of cover all segments of Gilmer County. Carleen from government, Mark for agriculture, Rick Tanner is the GM out at Cushawati. He's got a tremendous amount of knowledge in those things. And John from the business segment, and DeVille from the builders home.
Do you know who's on there from the cities? I don't have that.
I know who's on there from East LJ. It's Don Callahan and Matt Wood.
Lex Ryan.
LJ is Lex Rainey and Linnell Stewart.
Okay.
I only had one thought, I'm older than that, but there was, what was her name, Carly?
Maria Mullins.
Yeah, Mrs. Mullins. She has been on other county comprehensive planning committees and has quite a length of experience. So if there was a need, I would suggest her name, but that's.
She's great, too.
I do know of her experience.
She would be an excellent candidate. I kind of hate.
Yeah, but I didn't really think of that until I looked through the book, and then I wasn't sure who was on it.
Now, we're also going to have a, in addition to the steering committee, we're going to have a, what is it they call it, basically interested parties.
Stakeholders.
Stakeholders. Yeah. And we can certainly put it in as well.
Could I suggest maybe we create an alternate?
Sure.
Because it's going to be months, I don't know how many, I don't remember the schedule.
We can make her an alternate.
I think that would work, personally, if you're.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Can she sit in as an alternate?
Anybody can sit in, these are public meetings.
Yeah, they're public meetings.
But she's not being, I don't want to overload in terms of the county and the extra person. So that's why I want to.
Well, she wouldn't have.
She can be like an alternate or juror. She can be there, but she can't.
She wouldn't have a vote, but I would imagine she can provide her input because anybody there should be able to provide input.
Yeah. Or even
and it
fill
would be
in
public.
for somebody on a week that they couldn't be there.
Well,
or a week. I don't know.
I don't know if you can do that. I think somebody had to come off for to be able to do that. But these are going to be publicly advertised public meetings, advertised public meetings.
Yes.
So anybody can
Be there.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I think she'd feel more.
Yeah, I think that would work.
Okay, the last thing on the agenda is discussion of possible action of corrected right-of-way deeds along a portion of Ellery Road. David, if you want to.
Very quickly, when the road was constructed, right-of-way deeds were obtained from the various property owners. Surveyor for one of the properties that lies adjacent to that has brought up an issue as to the vagueness of those right-of-way deeds, and they've asked the county to assist with the correction. That's commercial property over there, and as y'all know, every square inch has value to it. It's unlike you would have in a residential neighborhood. So in my opinion, it's something that y'all should agree to do. They have not presented me with the deed yet, so I have not had a chance to review it, but I don't see any exposure or risk to the county, so it's okay.
David, I have one question in regard to that. The city of East LJ has annexed portions of a large portion of Ellery Road that when it was originally built, it was county. Now, are we talking about East LJ portion of Ellery Road, or are we talking about that portion that still remains
All
to be
of those
county?
right-of-way deeds, I believe, were issued to the county, so the county could construct the road, so that's what they're asking to be corrected.
But is it?
If the county's not gonna come back into any ownership or maintenance responsibility by acceptance of these right-of-way deeds, they're gonna relate back to the date that they were initially signed. It's just the fact that what happened, I think, is what typically happens is the best laid plans, where the road was supposed to go, it ended up being graded over here a little bit to the left or to the right because of the lay of land. And and again, if this were a residential neighborhood, it probably would never be addressed, and it's probably existing in a lot of residential neighborhoods, but it's commercial, and like I said, every square inch has a significant value. So.
Does that result in a new plat or a new survey or just a record?
I have not seen how they are proposing to accomplish this. This was just initially on the agenda so that the county could show that they'd be willing to acknowledge and to accept.
In my mind, as long as you get them and you're good with it, I'm good with it.
I think it's going to involve the survey and plat, you dig all through.
And as long as we don't have to pay for surveys.
Yeah, that was kind of my add-on question.
It's about to develop.
Okay, anything else? If not, we're citizens wishing to speak.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I understand this has been quite lengthy, but first I want to thank the commission. You know, when you do right by the citizens, the 30,000 citizens plus of the county, you should hear appreciation. And my appreciation for the commission reappointing quality people in the positions of clerk, finance, and the representation in this county, not just to be redundant to do it year after year, but to make sure that that consistency is there. And we have quality people in those positions and quality representation. And I would be upset if I've got a lot invested in Mr. Clark of how to debate with him, and just on that alone, I don't want to change nothing there because I still debate. But I want to thank this commission for that, for doing that. Good quality people in this county that you put in place to do these things. Second, I'd like to get an answer. If you don't want to, that's okay. Why did this meeting change from 8 to 9? If you could say that. I mean, first of all, it's not my easy. I'm about to get in trouble with the one person I don't want to get in trouble with. I'm okay with it. I just want to know why it changed. I mean, and if I get out of here for lunch,
It's not like
I just want to know why. Lonnie, I'm trying to stay out of trouble, Lonnie. Don't yell at me.
Let me say on the record.
And whatever they do, I'm okay with. I'm not saying that. I just want to know.
Let me say on the record, I never liked the 8 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
It was a convenience in my mind to Travis because it helped him, because he had to leave his business, and it was less intrusive to his business to be able to start earlier at 8. When Travis left the board,
okay,
and while I could still talk to Carlene, you know, I inquired about, would 9 o'clock be okay? She indicated that it would. Wasn't allowed to ask Dallas, but I think Edwin sent him a thing saying 9 okay, and it was, so we changed it to 9. There's no hidden agenda or any kind of agenda. It's just I don't like to get up that early.
Well, I don't, and I'm not doing it now because he did not tell me I could. So I'm not speaking for Lonnie, but I am going to say, Lonnie shares your thought. He never liked it. So Lonnie never liked it. I'm not saying anything about it, okay? Obviously, a lot of people, I'm a morning person. I would have enjoyed to stay at 8. Sorry, I know that's it, but I just question that. Okay.
So there's no consideration set.
There was never. Mr. Chairman, tomorrow night, I just want to say, when I heard about the $1 million and we put back $600,000, and I just want to say, I'm not in opposition, and I do understand the pool. I think I was sitting in the same chair when we authorized the first repairs to the pool. I've heard the gallons, I've heard the sewer bill. I'm with you on all that. So I know there's a segment that has the ear of the commission, a segment of the county. Okay, I would just caution you, say when you talk to people, the pool. There's 30,000 people in this county before you spend $1 million. I don't oppose a pool, but I oppose a standalone pool, and I will go into detail. I do not support publicly, a standalone pool being built. I will agree with that being part of something else, and I'll explain that tomorrow. I just like that, I know that's a big thing, but.
No, let me throw this out for your consideration when you're explaining it tomorrow. When this first came about, and it's been a couple of years ago now, we had sort of a town hall type meeting, you may remember that.
Right, I remember that.
And what has always been the plan, I think, since then, is that we want it to be part of a bigger project as well. I'd love to have an entire rec center, basketball courts, you name it. The problem, of course, as it always is money. The most urgent part of this right now is the pool because of the condition it's in and what it's costing us to maintain it. So the plan has always been that the pool would be engineered in such a way that it would be part of a larger project. It just would be the first part of that project that's built.
Okay, well put, because that's exactly probably what I'll be looking for tomorrow night, is if we put it in a location.
Right.
That it becomes the A of maybe A, B, C.
Exactly.
Then I can see where you're going, and I think that's something I can understand is that's the A item.
Right.
But in reality, I wouldn't be okay with just a standalone pool. But if we actually had the property, put the prints out, maybe not completed, but I used to work in blueprints, all the time, and we have the actual print for the pool, and then we have this area in the blueprints that says future A, future B, future C, to be determined, and then we do all the grading around and everything like that, to where it will receive when we do have the money. So that's something I'll propose, and then maybe as we get closer to a pool, that's the direction I think we would go in the county.
For me, absolutely.
For you? Okay. I can't tell you how much I appreciate hearing that, because I probably won't argue with the what is A, B, and C, because I have a personal preference of what A would be, but, I can understand that. The only thing, and I'll leave, and not to be too redundant, but, I took a lot of notes, and our new post-commissioner, Commissioner Ferguson, I heard make a statement over the last 9 months, okay, in reviewing things. I'm going to say again, after the end of this meeting, I'm going to ask the commission kindly, please put on the agenda somewhere of what are the possible ways we could reduce the tax burden on our citizens. I mean, if this is just on here, because, we did 3 hours. And, I am still very much in the belief that the half mil can come off. But, put it on the discussion for us out here. Put it on the discussion. Because nowhere today, right, does anybody, I knew the answer. And I knew the answer of what Mr. Tripp would say concerning the SPLOST model he used. He could not use what he doesn't have any history on. So when I talked about the internet SPLOST that could come in, he has no history to base that on. So we don't even talk about that. And this year, am I correct? This is the real year that we should be getting internet sales tax money, right?
Yes, and I hope it's significant, but we don't have a clue how to.
Exactly. All right, but this is the year, and I will tell you this: I have no data. I have no data to drive this. But rural counties, probably, if you put in the population, you put in the the income levels and things like that, it's skewed. But I will venture to say rural counties spend more on internet sales than some of the other counties that these citizens have the availability to go into Best Buy, or the citizens have the availability to go into Macy's. So I would say our citizens are really spending a lot of money if we really drilled into that segment of the population where, Amazon is sending into Gilmer County. And I think it's going to be a pretty decent number. I don't know. But I just ask you to start, excuse me?
I'm very hopeful.
Right, but I would just ask you to start thinking about, if that increases, where you want to go with that.
I'm happy to put that on the agenda and have that discussion, but I will say this. we've got a long way that we still have to go with the road department and other departments here. And I'm afraid that, you know, if we start talking about taking away the half meal and doing that, we're also going to have to talk about curbing what we're doing and trying to get the equipment replaced for the road department and so forth. And right now, the roads seem to be the hot button for everybody, including just striping. And so I don't want to do anything that means we cannot continue to get the road department in the shape it needs to be.
Well, the road department, I've been an advocate last year. I was an advocate last year of trying to find another actual $500,000 to push over into the, not to increase taxes, but to push over into the road department, because that is the thing. And all respect to my friends that, you know, want the pool. And I don't want to be the one that says, hey, the kids shouldn't have a pool in the summertime to go enjoy it. But I sat on the bank bench over here and heard road department as a item. You know, if I'm doing a to-do list, I've got I'm an old Franklin Covey guy. I have A, B, and C. I still have my binders at the office. So you got A items, okay? And I'm just concerned that I don't want to start 2019 in all due respect without a couple of them A items hitting the list, because one, roads department, I mean, hey, I don't care if we spend 2 hours on how to figure out how to get roads to be, because you told me, not to quote you, but I will remember and remind you quite often, you told me that's the #1 phone call you get.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so that needs to be the A item. We spent 3 hours, and I'm sorry, we need to talk about, as citizens, I'm just bringing to you, we need to talk about, okay, I'm going to put it out here, as though Ms. Ferguson said, or Commissioner Ferguson said, she didn't want to speak because of maybe the media and didn't want to share some things, okay? You have a high concern about an audit, okay? I'm going to tell you directly, in the 9 months, let me tell you the audit you need to do. Jim Smith is the best bureaucrat, and I take that line, Charlie, and it's never leaving. When you need a bureaucrat, you go to Jim Smith. That line is going to stick with me forever. Best line I've heard in a long time.
And I do need a bureaucrat.
You got it. So there's your bureaucrat. He is, when it comes to bureaucrats, he is head above all the rest. There you go. There's all the accolades you get. But he is over solid waste. The audit you need is solid waste. Now, I'm not being mean to you. I'm just saying, for the 9 months, and that's where my passion is, because we have citizens on the back bench. He's going to tell you, the meeting you maybe didn't attend, we have citizens on the back bench that will testify in this room and say they give $1 and they've watched it not go down in the box. Now, true or false, I don't know, but we've heard those kind of testimonies before, have we not, Mr. Chairman?
We have, and let me say, Brian.
And I agree with the direction you're going. I'm not pointing you out. I'm just saying, when we hear audit,
and what I would say is, more so than an audit, is we need to revamp the system.
Thank you. It's an A item.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm asking. Is wait a minute. I'm sorry, sir, in all due respect. Don't say it didn't get on this meeting as an A item. An audit, I heard an audit discussion for almost 2 hours. That at 0.1%, and I'm going to agree with whoever said it. I have seen elected officials brought into court over a $400 credit card bill. So I'm not going to say out of 0.1% to 1%. I think you said that the other commissioner found that they have questions on that equaled about 500. You're not going to hear me say that's not serious, but I will say in this room, I don't have facts. But since the former chairman Sanford put the $1 a bag in, and the cash sale policy up at our system, since he put it in, and all due respect to him, he had to do something. We had a problem with solid waste. He did have to do something. But since Chairman Sanford put that in, you want to talk about $500? That's your audit, Ms. Ferguson. Because you lost a lot more than $500 to the taxpayers, right? I'm my guess.
Would you put on the February agenda discussion of solid waste and how we can improve that?
And I know you're not doing that to appease me. I know you're not. But when I hear audit, and I agree. I agree. Make the chamber put the audit, all the above. You solved that. I think you did. I was sitting over here at audit, and we're still putting $1 in a box. It's 2019 for trash, and that's the true audit we need. So I mean, That's all I say. I just would hope you could put more A items on the list next time. And I appreciate this commission for always being open to hearing the citizens and allow us the opportunity to share what we think. And I appreciate you very much in this commission for that. You don't know how much. That's all I have to say.
Anybody else, citizens wishing to speak? If not, I understand that we need to go into the executive session, and I would make a motion that we do so.
You anticipate action?
No. No action anticipated.
Thank you.
For the purpose of.
Lonnie, I tried to get you
All in
8
favor?
o'clock.
I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I think scale 7 first.
I'm with you, man. I mean, I did easy. I'm okay with 9. You need to understand I am okay. I knew when I wondered 9 o'clock how much trouble